All right, good afternoon. It is 4:40 and time for the Redevelopment Agency of Murray for Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. Um, we just finished a tour of the Murray Chapel, which is at 4886 South Poplar Street in Murray. And so now we are reconvening here and we are going to discuss what we saw and give some direction on what we think that would be a good idea for that property. Oh, also, all council members are present. Yay, that's awesome. And anyway, we also received a letter that was distributed. Thank you. From Jen Keichel Lynn, who is the owner of K Real Estate. And should I read that letter? GL?
It's up to you. You could just say it's a part of the record.
Okay.
Since you have it, that'd be fine.
Okay. Anyway, we all received that, and so we'll make it a part of the record. So the first thing we have to do is discussion of the Murray Chapel. As I said, it's at 4886 South Poplar Street, Murray, Utah. We are reconvened. So comments from the RDA about the experience, what you think about the possible sale. Let's discuss. Jared, did you also want to be part of this discussion? That would be awesome.
I was just going to say, if you want, we can reiterate the things Doug was talking about to start that off. Is that?
Sure.
I think that would be good.
Is that good?
That'd be
Yes.
great. Thank you.
I found the acoustics a little distracting myself, so I'll just reiterate a couple of points from the tour and from Ms. Keichel's letter. So it's not a huge building, but does have the 2 levels, and that she's interested in that property and maybe the property to the south, as was pointed out. The RDA does own both of those parcels. One of the things that was kind of discussed and that we would like direction on from kind of the administrative side of things is first of all, if there's any interest at all on the part of the RDA in selling that property to somebody. And second, if the interest is in putting it out there for bids, or if we're interested in Ms. Keichel's offer because of her intent with the property to keep, she wants to keep the building and states that pretty much in the letter that's part of the record now. The third issue would be, if we were to sell it, whether it were to her or to another party, do we want to include, as a group, as a city, is it important to us to include deed restrictions that would keep the building, that would assure that the building stays intact, that it's not demolished, that it's not used for all nonprofits, so that there's no property tax generated? That would be important in because it is part of the RDA area, so it would be good if it were generating property taxes. Restrictions like that, first right of refusal, would be maybe important. If it is important, for example, that we keep it historically intact and that the buyer of the building, keep it intact. If that's important to us, then maybe it's also important to have first right of refusal, so that if they go to sell it, the city can buy it back and restrict it again in another sale if that's important to us. So those are all things to consider. And we don't have it on the agenda to discuss as an action item at all. We just kind of needed some thoughts from the council, from the board, about what we ought to maybe look at going forward with that. We can put together more information for you, potential prices. It'll obviously take some inspections and some appraisals and things to make it available. There's a little bit of a road ahead to do that, but we just need some guidance off the bat.
Great. Thank you, Jared. Okay, do we have comments, direction? Anyone want to discuss it? What do you think about making sure that it is historically integrous, that it, that it's maintained,
Yes.
all those things that Jared said, that also GL mentioned that we might want to specify were we to decide to sell it.
I'm definitely in favor of it
moving in a direction where it's getting used again. And I think that's part of the problem right now is it's not being enjoyed, it's not being used, it's not, living up to its full potential right now. And I think going the private route may be the way to get it there. I'm very curious to what level we can control private use and maintenance and just what level contractually can we really lock in once it's sold privately. Would be curious to hear more about that.
I'm curious about the nonprofit part.
Well, because if it's nonprofit, they don't provide us property tax potentially,
Yeah, and
or taxes.
I don't know if I'm on Right. board with that. Yeah.
Right. I think that was the discussion, right? Was to not have it be nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah, to generate income.
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
important. As
and
well.
Jared, maybe you can help us understand. She wants to keep the building as is, correct?
So that's the her letter and her conversations with us have been that she wants to keep the building. It's important to her. She's fourth generation Murray, et cetera. She wants to see the building stay and at least be used, if not in its historic context as a chapel, but that it stay and remain intact. So it wouldn't be demolished with her use. That's her plan.
And so there can be a contract to keep it intact.
I'm not a
drafted.
contract expert. We can look into it, but
But,
I
yeah.
would, generally speaking, contracts can be, deed restrictions are not out of
Yeah.
the norm. We might be able to control a lot.
So that's
of
what it
deed
would be, is a
restrictions.
deed restriction
Uh-huh.
within. Okay.
And that's why we would want first right of refusal if those things are really important to you and she can't make it work, or 2 years in, she finds out that it's not working for her financially and she needs to sell the building. We want to be able to buy it back to keep those same deed restrictions for somebody else.
And the parcel to the south is just holding. That's what we were looking at. It was just holding the sheetrock or whatever.
We're currently stacking sheetrock there.
There's nothing else on it.
Right now, it was a piece that we bought from, or we traded, or horse traded or bought from the Fraternal Order of the Eagles. It used to be
And I
attached.
understand it's RDA, but what's it zoned as?
It's all in the MCCD zone.
CCD.
Everything you could see from that building is in the downtown.
And that's
MCCD
mixed
zone.
use potentially.
Mixed use, yes. So it's not a big parcel that we bought. That piece that's adjacent to it that we ended up with. I'm not going to say bought. I'm going to say ended up with from the Eagles. It's not real big. Probably not developable on its own. So it might be good to put with it. I don't know. We'll take a look at it. Zach's a whiz with
She-
the Adobe. We'll have him take a look.
And maybe you don't know this, but is she looking to put her business there or using it as like an event space or?
I'm not clear on
Do we
exactly
know?
what she wants to do, and that'll be the next phase. But
Okay.
my understanding is she would want to have an office of some sort there, and she
Mm.
would want to use it for events.
Okay.
So that's my basic understanding. I don't want to commit her to that too much.
As of right now, we're maintaining it. So the city's putting, even if it's a minimal amount of money and time and resources into maintaining this building. Is it on a list? Was there a plan? Is there a looking out, we would love to do blank with it that we've set aside money for? Is there anything like that? Or have we just been kind of in a holding maintenance pattern with it?
I would say we're mostly in the holding maintenance pattern. There used to be some plans to move buildings together in a park situation. Most of those are disrupted somewhat by the new city hall plan, et cetera. But right now, yeah, it's in a kind of a holding pattern. It's not part of the new city hall site, the development there, so kind of just holding it.
Tammy asked me if her office could be there. Her and GL were going to share it. So.
Her own private.
Mhm. The other thing I was thinking about is the process of selling it, right? So the conflict I have is you have a fourth generation Murray individual citizen coming forward that wants to buy it, but you also want to do right by the citizens and get the maximum value out of it. Bidding, I hate it to some extent because it drives prices crazy, especially today. So it's a conflict from that perspective, is how do we go about that? Because I think to be stewards to our citizens, getting top dollar is what makes sense.
Right. Have we had any interest in that parcel before?
I'm trying to think if I've had any calls on that parcel since the people salvaging when they sold. I don't think we have, no.
I have, since I've been in, I haven't heard. I think, Doug, have you heard before of someone interested?
Yeah, one time we had a phone call from probably about 2-3 years ago. We had a phone call from a Murray resident well-known family in Murray that was interested in purchasing it. They met with Mayor Camp at the time. Of course, Mayor Camp was in favor of selling that property if the RDA board would approve it. He met with them a couple of times on it, but he asked them to submit something in writing, which they never did submit anything. So that's the only inquiry I'm aware of.
But wouldn't we base the price on an appraisal? I mean, to whoever we sold it to.
True, but appraisals are, I mean, the homes and everything's selling for way over appraisal right now.
Right.
Right. And so that's what I'm getting at is that, you know, if we do stick with one person, appraisal's probably what you're going to get.
Right.
If you open it up, you're probably going to draw more money in potentially because everyone's wanting to buy.
I think that's absolutely true. But there are two competing interests, really. You have the interest in getting the most money for the
True.
property.
And
the
keeping
dirt
the
is worth more
chapel.
than the building, bluntly.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So if you
We
open
wanna
up for
maintain.
bidding, you're bidding on the dirt, not on the building. So if it's
Right.
important to the board to keep the building, that's a whole different
That's a
consideration.
good point.
And it
Because you
doesn't
have a big
to
string
be,
attached, which is a building.
and it doesn't have to be those two parcels either.
No.
So that's also something to consider.
I would be surprised if it's a huge amount of people who want to
Have a chapel.
update and maintain and stick within our strict
True. Good point.
pieces of that contract.
But I'm wondering if there's going to be other citizens that are Old Murray, that if they get an indication that we're thinking of selling it, we need to look at them also, because there could be other Old Murray's residents out there that would like to buy it besides
We'll
Well,
find
then-
this
out.
lady.
Should we have an appraisal on it to begin with so people have some idea what the value is? I mean,
I don't see why not.
Right.
If there's enough interest, and that's I guess why we're here tonight and had the tour. If there's enough interest on the RDA board's part to go forward with a sale, that's probably where we start to get an idea what we need to get for it. And then we can have a real conversation with Ms. Keichel or whoever it is.
right. So should we give that direction to
Yeah.
get
Mhm.
started?
I'm in support of that.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Jared. You got what you needed?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate the input. All right. Now, where am I at?
Number 2.
Yeah. Okay. Approval of the RDA meeting minutes for March 8th, 2022 and March 23rd, 2022. I have a change, and it's just that I am currently the chair, not the pro tem chair, and so that will be changed. And are there other additions, changes to the minutes?
Oh, just that I don't know. I think in the past they've said chair and vice chair is what I said to the minutes. So
Okay, yeah, and Rosalba
And-
should be the vice chair.
yeah, and I think that's it.
Pam, did you have anything?
No, I already talked to Jared about it.
Okay, so
He
there
took
were
care of it.
changes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right, then I would take a
So
motion.
I'll move that we approve the RDA meeting minutes for March 8th, 2022 and March 23rd, 2022
With the changes.
with the changes.
Okay.
I will second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay, sounds good. Third, we are at citizen comments. Oh, Jared, do you have
So
something
I just
for
have
us?
the only comment that we received, I was just checking the email to make sure we hadn't received any more, is the letter that you've all got that's already been indicated to be in the record. So when we do those minutes, we'll just include the verbiage from that letter wholesale. And if you have no other comments, then that'll be that, because there's nothing to do.
Perfect. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we are adjourned. Thank you.
If you can find your way to a seat. And we will get going. All right, thanks everybody. It is 5 o'clock. We're gonna begin our committee of the whole meeting. We have all council members present. The first thing we have up is approval of the minutes for our committee of the whole meeting from March 8th, 2022. Were there any corrections, concerns, changes?
None that I saw. Anybody else?
If there are none, I'll take a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the committee of the whole minutes for March 8th, 2022.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Can I just ask one question real quick?
Sure.
Can we go and visit the Jordan landfill sometime? It was on the first page, and I was just wondering if we could set up some kind of, or I would like to go see it again. So,
Thanks, Jennifer.
thank you.
All right, and just to check, was anyone opposed to the minutes? I didn't know. Okay, just checking. I didn't want you to miss your opportunity. All right, we've got 3 discussion items this evening, and we're starting off with 2022 legislative summary with GL, David, and Corey.
Thanks. For those of you who don't know our lobbyists, 2 sitting in front of you, David Stewart, Corey Holdaway, they're the 2 who spend the 45 days and more on the Hill speaking with legislators and protecting the city's interests. And we appreciate what they do. This is one of the favorite times of the year, I think, is to have them come and kind of give us an overview of the session, their impressions of where the legislature is going, and then any detailed comments they have on specific bills are welcomed as well. So I'll let you 2 take it from here.
There we go. Got her done. Thank you, GL, for the opportunity to address the council, and on behalf of David and myself, we're grateful for the opportunity to represent Murray. Murray is a unique, we don't need to tell you, I mean, unique city, because you do all the things that other cities don't in terms of water, school districts, I mean, you do it all, and it's a pleasure to represent you. So as far as the interests for the city during the legislative session. I also want to represent or recognize Councilman Rosalba Dominguez, who spent a lot of time on the Hill during some of the League of Cities and Town meetings. She was there, and grateful for her input during the session. This, much like a lot of the sessions we go into, we go in with a lot of apprehension and not sure what to expect, and largely at the end of the day, I think the legislature does their business, and for the most part, will take the input from cities because of the League of Cities and Towns. I want to just compliment the League of Cities and Towns and what they do on behalf of the cities across the state. And Murray's unique because the executive director for the League of Cities and Towns is a former Murrayite, Cameron, and he does a great job. I've given to GL the League of Cities and Towns legislative summary. And if you haven't had a chance to look at that, I would just encourage you to do that. It's a legislative wrap-up that is on their webpage. I should have made copies for each of the council members, but I do have one copy. This goes through each of the bills that were prioritized by the League, and breaks them up according to the various interests of the cities. For Murray, one of the bills that I want to just draw your attention to is House Bill 462. This is a bill that was sponsored by Representative Waldrop and Senator Anderegg. This is a bill dealing with the land use and affordable housing issue. And it makes some adjustments from the last legislative session, Senate Bill 34. It goes into some more details in terms of just details around the plans for density. Thank you. Density. It gives you some specific requirements that have changed. I'm sure the city's already aware of it, but the dates around those requirements have changed. There's a priority document that the league also puts out, House Bill 462, which I've also made available to GL, and it goes into a lot of that. So I would just encourage the city to pay attention to that. There are some opportunities for funding with ARPA funds and TIF funds that are enhanced because of that bill. And I know David was very active in terms of, as he always is, with the transportation funding for the city. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, or.
Yeah, I mean, this year was obviously a year we didn't have the famous quarter of the quarter. Usually it's about every couple of years. So I would anticipate next year there'll be some buildup in the fund to do that. But this and a few other issues really took the focus. And again, there's some positives. There's also, as always with the legislature, there's a few clubs in there that if, and I don't anticipate Murray would be a problem, but it was more for other communities that aren't taking density and trying to address some homelessness and different options throughout their city. And it kind of has some carrots and some sticks to try and help drive. And it's not necessarily even any one solution, but at least making the discussion happen to come up with some solution and not a one size fits all. And it works a lot through transit and through other things like that, and through the Wasatch Front Regional Council and things. So that'll be something, certainly, as Corey said, there are some key dates. And again, there's a plenty long of a runway to work through that. And I would guess, as we talk kind of pre-session, I think Murray has done a lot of these things, and I think it'll be playing on the edges a little bit, kind of putting things maybe into compliance or working through that. And so I don't anticipate that being an issue.
So we're okay? I mean, not anything that we really need to be concerned about at this point?
If I wouldn't say GL needs, I don't anticipate, let's put it this way. It wasn't crafted in a way it was certainly crafted in a way to motivate other cities. I don't anticipate that Murray is in alignment with those cities and the problems they're having, because you guys actually are working to address, through affordability and other things as we've talked. So on its surface, now, not to say there's not unintended consequences or it doesn't sweep up others, that if we're not doing something, that's why I say certainly we'll want GL and others to look through and make sure, like I say, I think tweaking at most, because another reason I say we're not is we're not one of the bad actors that this bill was really driving to try and get motivated. They've tried for a while to incentivize and to encourage for the last couple of years, and there's just been some holdouts, namely up in Summit County and other areas like that really are driving a lot of this bill to kind of start putting out, again, more of a stick, if you will, that if they're not going to try and address those types of issues, and as well as, Salt Lake City certainly has issues, and some of the other, Ogden and different things like that. But again, I certainly don't want to say don't worry about it, but it wasn't targeted at us, but we'll want to make sure we go through that.
Can I just say also, so Zach has been looking at this from the beginning. There'll be a few changes here and there, and he'll bring this to you. I was just talking a few minutes ago, 3 or 4 times between now and September. So you'll see what the changes are. But what David's saying is absolutely right. We have, I don't know if we've been on the leading edge, but we've done a lot to encourage affordable housing. And so it's not like we're starting from ground zero like a few places will be.
The housing issue too is, what they're looking at in terms of just station area planning, as far as transit goes, and what you all have been doing around that is much farther along than some of the other areas. So I think as the plan is further developed and submitted, the one thing I will say different than in the past is the Department of Workforce Services has the responsibility for approving the plan. You submit it, and then DWS approves it, unlike the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm sure your planning office will be all over that and make sure that that's done so that you'll qualify for the additional funds that are available. The funds that are available are some of the ARPA funds that the federal government had designated. And I would just encourage you to take advantage of those where you can. So,
Okay, that's not part of what we've already received then. That's additional.
No, it's additional.
no, I think it's some additional opportunities.
From my understanding, it is additional, and DWS, the way we report our housing and affordability, right, will also be reported differently within this new legislation. So, and it's supposed to be more simplified than it was in the past, somewhat.
Yeah.
Okay, I think they're still figuring all the details out, is what I understood, and just so you guys are also aware, I did testify because we are one of the only cities that do have a plan, and some cities do not.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was I sat in that committee, and it was interesting to see the conversations being had. But I think overall we're way we are way
Good.
further in that and we're a part of that conversation too.
Yep.
So
It's one of the things I worry about. I want to make sure we're doing what we can in terms of housing and affordable housing. So good. Okay.
The other bill I'd like to throw out.
Sorry, really quick, can I ask you a question
Yes.
just generally,
Yeah.
because I'm not sure that's been addressed? How long have you all been representing us in Murray?
I think this is my third year.
Third year. And what others, do you represent other cities?
I do not.
You do not, so you're solely focused on Murray?
No, I do. I've been representing Murray 8 years. Yeah, I think 8 or more years. And I do represent some other cities, somewhat a little bit like Murray, in that cities that largely don't have kind of Republican representation, generally speaking, and are unique as far as have interests and things that aren't fully satisfied through the league and stuff like that. The other city they do work for, Park City, Salt Lake City, and West Valley.
Okay. And when you guys, I noticed in here, there's an explanation about how we get what the city's position is, but is it the mayor who ultimately makes that call on if we're going to support it or not, or you're just gathering information and you all determine this
So-
is good for Murray, this is not?
So this is my report.
This is your report.
This is my report, yeah.
So you're the one making these decisions on support or oppose?
At times, I
Okay.
talk to the mayor's office, sometimes we talk,
Okay.
and then sometimes it's just obvious, and sometimes it's not.
But we also have voting members. So, right. So Salba, and then how many? Do we have
We
three?
have
or-
three, that's right.
Three.
3 voting
So
members
then
that
there's-
make, so you guys get together and make a decision whether we're going to support something or not?
No, this is when the league gets together,
I
the
gotcha.
policy committee,
Okay.
that's when the vote happens. Great.
Just
There's a
trying to
weekly
get it all
meeting.
understood.
There's a weekly meeting held by the league each Monday,
Okay.
where positions are taken on the various bills that are impacting municipalities. And your 3 votes are Councilwoman Dominguez and the mayor and GL.
Okay. And so, but I do notice there's times where the Utah League and the city disagree on their, and so that ultimately comes down to, we voted a different way potentially at the Utah League of Cities and Towns and came up, and so you guys
And
recognize
then we
that.
will take the
Understood.
city's
Understood.
position on
Okay.
that.
Great.
And it's Murray is a little bit different, has a challenge. I'll be perfectly frank with you. You have a bit of a challenge because you don't have anybody in the majority party
Right.
representing you in the legislature. So as such, it takes a little bit of effort for us to be able to have the impact that
We're here
that other
too.
cities may not have, like Utah County. I'll
Right.
throw that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. Also, when you have good idea but oppose.
I'm sorry.
There. We
That
have,
was me. Diane,
Oh, Senate Bill 110.
that was me.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good idea.
If you look at the
Yeah,
fundamental things we talk about, like local control and things like that, there are things the legislature proposes where you think, I like that idea, but it should have come from us. So that's kind of
Yeah, and it's interesting when we were in DC, that was something that Representative Curtis, if you guys recall, brought up, where he said that the city should have more control and power and things. So.
That's because he was
It's,
a
it's
mayor.
always a unique dance because the state legislature looks at the federal government and says, well, you guys, you should let us do it. And then they take control of the city, and
Right.
it's like kind of a dance that goes on, unfortunately. The other issue that I just want to at least apologize to you all about is there was a bill that I had a client that I was representing, the puppy mill. Well, it wasn't puppy mill. It was represented as a puppy mill bill, but because of my representing you and also them, I let them know that I would no longer be representing them, and that bill ultimately was not passed, thanks to the work of David, and I backed away.
Thank you, Corey. And
Well,
David.
and in defense of Corey, he actually brought up in our pre-session meeting that he had this, and I think, and we talked, and at the time, I think the thought was, since we had an ordinance in place, and when it came out and it was going to preempt all local, I think that's when you guys ended up getting concerned. And to Corey's credit, as soon as GL sent out, we're strongly opposed. This, we have an ordinance that will now be preempted that we worked closely with the Humane Society and others to do. This is a big issue for us, and so Corey immediately kind of stepped aside and gave me the opportunity to go in. And ironically, the person running the bill, this is where two worlds collide, is actually my cousin, who's in the state legislature. And he comes from an agricultural background. And so he had some agricultural interests that deal with animals and things, where he runs into the Humane Society and others that get into his world. And so that's where, and Corey's client they had similar interests. And so he was running one bill and they kind of mirrored them together, and was able to get him to back off of that. And then he had a second wind where it got slid into another bill at the last minute. And so everybody lost their mind, and we were able to rip it back out the last day of session. And it was created a lot of fireworks. After, it's funny, you get all the major bills like the one Corey just went over kind of worked out, or at least, finalized, and kind of everybody takes that deep breath. And that's when all these kind of candidly stupid things start coming up at the end, and it starts to get creative. They start finding vehicles to start pushing things in here and there. And so that's when it gets a little crazy. But ultimately, we're able to defeat that. Now, but full disclosure, it's coming back next year. My understanding is, though, again, this will be my cousin doing it, it's going to be purely from the agricultural perspective. So I don't anticipate that it would affect us and affect any ordinances or things. It's going to deal in that world only, is what his efforts are. And so that was, we were trying to work that out at the end of session, but it was one of those at the last minute where there was too much confusion. So I got him just to agree to bury it at the end of session and come back, work through the interim to make sure that, because there were concerns from other cities, Salt Lake City runs their horse carriages and things like that. And so there were some unintended consequences grabbing some of those types of things where you were doing, treating animals and livestock for profit, and how did that grab it? And so trying to craft a solution that addresses the rural needs, but doesn't really get in the middle of some of the urban efforts to work on issues that are obviously different in those two communities. So
What bill was that?
that was 476, House Bill 476. And again, that being one of those, and that's where I think, we're certainly helpful, is the league cared, but it wasn't, the league had been slaying dragons all session, and this wasn't one, but there was certainly, Salt Lake City, Murray City, Cottonwood Heights, handful of other cities, Sandy and a few others were very passionate and had dealt with this issue. And so that's where, it was funny, I ran into all kinds of lobbyists for other cities I hadn't seen all session, and they suddenly really cared, and was able to make them all look good when we got the bill to go away. So.
Yeah, I give hats off to Corey. You jumped on that so quick when we called you, and really, I thought this is going to be hard. You made it very easy for us, so thanks.
So, that largely is, as far as interim goes, I think what we need to continue to kind of monitor is the affordable housing issue. That will continue to be an issue with Representative Waldrop and Senator Anderegg continuing to work on those issues. And then beyond that, just the maintaining the sovereignty of local control being kind of the important thing. You've got an opportunity, obviously, with the elections this cycle. Each of the members of the House are up for election. And as you all know, when you're up for election, you become a little more in tune to your constituency. So if you have issues that you're concerned about, please let them know of your concern and let us know, and we can communicate that to them as well. So as the election goes forward, I think we'll have opportunities to have those interactions with legislators.
And as we mentioned earlier, one of the difficulties at times is there's not a member of the majority caucus, but what you do have are several members of the minority who actually are very responsive and are great on the municipal issues. Unfortunately, they're not generally driving the overall policy. And so I continue to communicate with them, but I want to make sure that we're very clear on that they're great to work with. They're always seeking out either Corey, myself, or the mayor, or GL or others, and are very responsive there and certainly believe in that local control and are supportive. It's just, there's just not a lot of them. And so that kind of becomes a struggle. And touch a little bit on elections. So as Corey mentioned, we're at the, he's finished redistricting at a state level, national level, but at a state level. So districts have gotten changed up a little bit. There seems to be a little anti-incumbent mentality out there. There's a lot more primaries that have happened in the county conventions. This Saturday will be the state convention. There's quite a few challenges we'll see, but most of the county conventions so far, a majority of those have ended up in primaries. And I think, for a myriad of different issues, I think part of it's just people are frustrated and mad and general things, and this is something they can kind of focus on. And so we'll see that now. Kind of other major elections after November, you'll have your leadership elections. Both the Speaker and the President of the Senate have indicated they plan to run for re-election, and doesn't look like anybody will oppose them. And so we'll see. They will certainly be the same. There'll be a few changes other than that, but largely it will be the same makeup for the next 2 years from a legislative leadership perspective. Obviously, the governor isn't up until 2 more years, so he'll be the same. And so from an election perspective, and kind of so you understand scheduling wise, you get out of session, everybody kind of disperses. Everybody's focused right now on their elections. They take April off. May will be the first interim where they kind of adopt their study items throughout. They'll meet monthly. They'll take off either July or August, depending on, because they have national meetings they go to. It's July this year. So they'll take July off, and then they'll continue on through November, meeting monthly, and we'll start to see early in May and June. Now, as has been the last few years, I think we'll continue to see quite a few bills dealing with local control, dealing with cities and stuff. More on housing and other issues like that. This last year was obviously huge on water infrastructure and funding there. I mean, it was a unique year. You guys have certainly, I'm sure, seen it at a local level from sales tax dollars, but the state, between sales tax growth, income tax growth, and just stupid money that the federal government's been throwing around. They had a couple $2 billion of money that was kind of parsed out. They put $1 billion into the TIF program for transportation, for road projects. Now, a lot of that kind of stuff is getting eaten up through inflation and other things. All these projects now are costing 10, 20, 30% more. And so there is a big piece of that. But quite a few things funded at the state level. I know when we talked early on, we were talking about the Murray Theater. One of the things.
That's what I was going to ask. We can't get $2 million for the Murray Theater. So what's up with that?
The problem we run into there is you have, from a state legislative perspective, of looking at saying, well, they see more on the locals received ARPA dollars and other things, and there were a lot of people pushing. So what they ended up doing is, for all those types of requests, they block granted some chunks of money to heritage and arts, and kind of have been trying to, and made their biggest step this year, the last couple of years, of getting more and more out of that business, as far as being the ones to request for theaters and for festivals and all those types of projects. They have been kind of getting frustrated. It's been driven largely by the appropriation chairs in both the House and the Senate to say, look, this is, we're tired of there's not really a great evaluation of things, and there's others that really are in this community better than us. So their effort has been to kind of try to say no and push that money to the Heritage and Arts. So there will be an opportunity to apply for grants through that. That will largely be starting after July 1st. So we'll want make sure you have staff and stuff reviewing that process. But that's where they sent most of the money is for in this arena, or they didn't really fund many unless you were a key member of leadership that really had a key project
Yeah,
that you really,
right.
really wanted. And unfortunately, our member of leadership was minority leadership that was seeking funding, and so that was not going to get funded. But most of that stuff got pushed to Heritage and Arts.
And Dave, just so you know, we have been contacted
Good.
by them, and Kim Sorensen's working on it. Dale Cox called us, and Gene Davis has
Good.
been involved. So they've given us a lot of hope that we will
Good,
get
I
it. I
hope
mean, I
so.
don't know what'll happen, but
Well, it sounds like we need to apply for some.
and Kim Sorensen's working with them.
Great, Kim. Okay.
And then one other funding item of note is last year, the legislature did a special session, put $50 million of ARPA to a local grant, local match program that they ended up receiving $1 billion worth of requests to match against the 50 million. I know Murray City put in a handful, did not make the cut. Through the session, I've been talking to GL and to your Public Works, and have found out those. And so there's been another 25 million put towards that. And this last year, we unfortunately, and my fault, we didn't communicate on making sure to help shepherd that through. And so as that 25 million happens this summer, it'll be my plan to certainly get something funded there for us. Probably the tune between $500,000 and $1 million. I think we're one of the projects. And so obviously there'll be another, I'm sure, $500 million. There'll be there's tons of need out there, but the good thing is a lot of it all looks the same on paper as far as every community needs it and is justified in getting it. It's just understanding how to get it through. So that's something that's certainly on my radar to work through this summer and working to seek funding there. And then, like I said, next year I would anticipate, and I'll work with, again, Public Works as well to identify I'm hopeful there'll be another kind of quarter-to-quarter bill to start looking at helping fund some of our local roads and get some things. So I'll be working with them on what our priorities would be leading into next session.
Great. We need your help. So
Excellent. GL?
Have any other questions?
Do you have questions, Ben?
Leave?
I do.
Well, then go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. On page 45, the Jordan River Parkway, what does that mean for Murray?
There was additional funding that was approved for expanding the work that's been done on the Jordan River Parkway from West Valley City going south to where Murray is at. Unfortunately, I don't think Murray, I think the funding that has been approved is largely the West Valley City part of that. So
Okay.
I think it was $500,000 that was appropriated for it.
Okay.
And that was largely the work done by Representative Winder from West Valley
Right.
City.
Mike.
Yeah.
That's been his baby for several years now.
Yeah.
And he's leaving.
He's left. Yeah.
Yes.
He's already left.
Yeah, he's the city manager now at Mill Creek, and so
Okay.
he resigned, and or actually, I guess, is he officially? Did he?
I
Is he
don't
going
think
to
he
serve?
resigned.
Okay,
He's going to serve.
Yeah, he didn't run. I guess
He's
he didn't
just
run
not running
again.
for
Yeah,
re-election.
that's right. He served through the session.
Okay. And I appreciate on page 47 the bereavement leave amendment. SB 63. Thank you for doing that. I think everyone should have that are working citizens. Let's see. I think on page 7, HB 36, it's Commission on Housing Affordability and Amendment. What does this mean for Murray City? are we talking about apartments?
So this is one that establishes a subcommittee under the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission. It doesn't right now necessarily do anything for the city or against the city, but the subcommittee is going to provide recommendations on how the state should address moderate income housing.
In fact,
That will come down to us through the space and time, but right now it's the state is working.
yeah, and I think that bill largely was just a configuration of the committee.
It
as I
extended it.
recall.
It was supposed to be repealed, so it extended the repeal date and tweaked a few of the membership to
Yeah.
continue reviewing it. So they're continuing the work they've been doing for the last couple of years.
That's the reason that's included, Pam, also is just to show that the legislature is focused on housing affordability, and that will filter down to us one way or another.
And that's part of the work that Representative Waldrop and Senator Anderegg are continuing to work on.
Because the word I circled was rehabilitation of replacement units or new construction. So I was just curious but if that's going to be relooked at or whatever, then I just had
In
to.
terms of definitions,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know the answer to that, Councilwoman.
okay. I think that's. I don't know if I should bring this up, so I'm going to wait and talk to Jared on another one that I noticed that I have a question on. And it's the 1 mile radius of those locations, HB 462. And so I just had a question about the mile radius of those locations. And yeah, and
I have kind of a tag question with that I think will answer a lot of questions in here.
Okay.
And so I don't want to cut you off, but I think it'll like kind of bring this together. So first, I just thank you for this huge report. Members of the public who are curious, I hope that they'll go to the online resources and read it. It's a lot of bill information. From here, I already got a message from a resident who's really excited about HB 121, which is the water conservation modifications. There's some funding. Yay, we love when there's funding involved with something to flip some turf, some grass to xeriscape. And he said, okay, when are we doing it? Like today? Like, how do I apply for this grant today? So from these bills, I know Jared's going to be coming before us and Zach with a lot of cleanup bills from here. I think just maybe an explanation of from these bills into practice where we're sitting on voting on changes and cleanups and how they impact us. What does this look like for us from here?
So a lot of those bills will not actually become law until May or July. And in the meantime, Jared and Zach will be working on any changes like the flip the strip type of thing, where we cannot require lawn in that area. So the way it looks is really a lot of activity over the next several months, and then coming back to you and having you approve the changes in the ordinances.
And from there, we'll have opportunities to ask questions on
Yes.
every
Yes.
single bill, ordinance, language change as whether it's mandatory or whether we're wanting to go above or beyond or whatever that looks like. We'll have those debates and discussions, ordinance by ordinance. They come forward. Does that answer? It'll be fine, Zach. It's going to be fine. He's
On
It's
top
fine.
of everything else.
any other questions or before we move on?
Thank you.
Thank
It's a
you
lot of
both.
fun.
Thank you for
So
thank
thanks
you both
for being here.
Yes, thank
Thanks.
you, GL. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Rosalba, for
Thanks, you
all of your
too.
work this session, and enjoy the 3 hours between now and the interim. Have a
Corey,
little break.
enjoy the sun.
Oh, I just wanted to recognize my business partner as well, who was helpful with this, Audrey Wood. Thank you.
Thanks for being
Thank
here,
you,
Audrey.
Audrey.
We appreciate you. All right. Next up, discussion on a memorandum of understanding for the 4,800 lofts, and we've got Zachary Smallwood and Jared on backup. On deck.
Yeah. So while I'm pulling this up, because I cannot help myself, I'll just mention that for the xeriscaping, we actually already allow it. We don't require grass in your landscape strip. Sorry, my head's a little fuzzy. I have a really bad cold, so I'm going to stumble a lot tonight. But as long as there's planted material, you're allowed to put in, xeriscaping, like a mix of rocks and shrubs and things like that. So for your constituent, they can do it right now. Public Works does have a Flip the Strip program that operates. And so I would suggest calling probably Corey Wells.
I think they're looking though for the larger, not the park strip. They want
okay.
funding for the full yard
Okay,
to,
yeah, that's going to be
to wood
something
chip
that-
situation.
for sure. Yeah,
Which-
that will take time.
So they want to apply today.
And I will note the park strip ordinance is challenging to adhere to. I did the process through Jordan Valley Water Conservation because they're the ones who came out and did it. It's not the easiest piece to adhere to. They require like 60% living, has to be on a separate sprinkler system. There's a lot of things that are required for that. But then Murray City came in and tore up a bunch of people's park strips and allowed them to put rocks in. So
Depends on
we
whose
need to
water-
make sure we follow our own ordinances as they're in place because we did that on my street just this last.
Yeah, that largely depends on kind of what water district you're part of.
Okay.
So if you are in Jordan Valley Water Conservancy, I don't think you'd be able to apply for Murray City's water Flip the Strip. You have to be a Murray water
Yeah.
user. So,
It is, but
okay.
we still have to
Alright.
adhere to Murray's rules.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I had to talk about it. So,
Go ahead.
yeah, thank you for your time tonight, you guys. So this application is from IMH 4800 Lofts. This request is authorizing the mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding for a mixed-use project at 447 West, 4800 South. So a couple things I wanted to touch on why we're here tonight. So in October of 2021, the Planning Commission approved the project of the 4800 Lofts, which is a mixed use, a horizontal mixed use, meaning that there are elements that are the retail may be a little separated or from the residential aspects, kind of like the Kmart site, for example. But this one actually has some residential detached and some of it actually attached to the buildings as well. So this is all being approved under the prior mixed use code. This is not the new mixed use code after the moratorium. Thank you. I'm sorry. So they were vested ahead of time, so they were actually able to apply for this. So they have been approved under those prior codes. The Planning Commission reviewed it under those codes and granted approval under those codes. So tonight, the City Council is authorized. Your role as an administrative body in this aspect is to authorize the mayor to sign the memorandum of understanding. To be blunt, it's not a re-review of the project because that was delegated to the Planning Commission. So the MOU is a contract, and the City Council are the only body that's allowed to enter into contracts. The Planning Commission can't enter into contracts. It's only the legislative body that can do that. So we'll get into it. So the project is located in the red. They have recently combined all these lots into one, so it is one single lot now. As I mentioned, it was in the previous MU zone, which is mixed use. That's been changed to the Murray Central mixed use zone. So the elements of the memorandum of understanding is to memorialize three key aspects specific for this project. The first is the phasing of the project, which is to make sure that we don't get all of the residential up front without any of the commercial or retail establishments as part of that. So as you can see in phase one, let me get my little laser pointer back. So here in phase one, we have a majority of the retail area, which is in this corner here attached to this residential building. And then we have a standalone retail building, which is here. Phase two would include this large residential building with this retail component here. And then also there is another small retail component here with another residential building. So this has gone through back in October. It was reviewed by all the city departments, engineering, fire, power, all those fun people. All of their conditions were part of that. So they know what they need to do. It's a total of 371 units across the 3 buildings. And then there is approximately, I apologize, I can't remember off the top of my head, about 18,000 square feet of commercial between the 3 commercial aspects. So this information is just to kind of give you an idea of what it's going to look like. This is, so if for any reason the developer comes back to us in the planning division and says, we want to change something, it would have to most likely conform with the new regulations. So it would limit that density, limit that, or change the parking calculations. However, we can make minor tweaks. So for the reason I bring this up is, say like they decide they don't like this green color on the building, they can, or any other color, and that they can decide that they want to change there, and that's okay. We usually can approve that at staff level. So this is kind of giving you an idea. This is the, let me go back actually. This is the standalone retail building that'll face on 4800 South right up here. This is the first phase residential and retail building. It will be, this will face 48th and kind of that private access drive there, and then the residential above it. This is just spinning it around 360 degrees. So the other aspect that the Memorandum of Understanding is going to be governing is they did something a little more unique. They had to provide publicly available open space for people. And how they approached that is through rooftop amenities. So above the commercial aspects, here highlighted in yellow, that is going to be publicly available and open for people to go and dine or hang out, anything they want to do. So as part of the Memorandum of Understanding, we wanted to make sure that was in that contract, that will remain open at all times. That's not something that at any time in the future they can close off. I think that's really important to make sure that we have that. And I anticipate this to change a little bit. This was just them giving me renderings, because you're not going to have a publicly available pool.
I have a quick
unfenced.
question about
Yeah,
that.
sure.
How would the public access the rooftop? I mean, how would we know? Because I like, for instance, in DC, you have to live in those spaces to go onto the rooftop.
And they have talked to us about that. Let me. Is this gonna do what I
Because
want?
I think it's great. You would totally see the mountains from there.
So if you can kind of see, there are these steps here that are right adjacent to up to that area. So it's not, it's
Oh,
and-
so it would be on that landing,
yeah,
not
it
like
would
on
be
top
on this
of the
landing here, and then they will have ADA accessible
I thought it was on the very
um,
top, Gary.
ADA accessible accessibility up to those rooftop spaces as well.
Okay,
it's
so it
not
would be
sh-
the first story rooftop, not like the
yeah, not the
okay.
very tip top, but
I
the
thought-
first story rooftop.
I was like, wait, I would love to go at the very top. That
and you might
sounds
still
amazing.
you might still like it up on top of this first floor as
No,
well.
no. I want to go up to the very top. Okay.
So that's on building. They've labeled their buildings weird, but so that kind of speaks to that here as well. I've explained to them that it's really important to make sure that they put signage on it, you know, explaining that this is publicly available, that people are welcome to come up here, and that's something I'm really going to be watching for in their building permit applications. Is making sure I see that kind of signage.
Well, I love the concept. So
Yeah, definitely.
Continue on.
All right, so this is kind of the monster. This is the second. This is the phase 2 residential building. So there was a concern with fire and emergency access Getting through, and I apologize, I'm going to go back to the site plan for a moment. Having emergency access through this site here. They needed some sort of fire exit. So another kind of interesting and innovative thing they've done is provide a, I believe, 14-foot opening through the building to allow for emergency access. It will be publicly accessed. It won't be gated off. It won't be restricted in any way. So people can actually go through that. So it's almost like a tunnel through the building to get access to here and allow for emergency services to go through. That's the third aspect of this MOU, is to make sure that that's memorialized, that will remain open and accessible for emergency services at all times. So you can kind of see that here a little bit. It's that big opening here. So then again, this is the retail portion on the inside of the lot of that building with that 14-foot access here. And then again, this will also have a rooftop amenity highlighted here in yellow. This will be publicly available and accessible, pretty much incorporated into the retail component, ADA accessible, all that fun stuff. This back here will be the private to the residents of this complex here.
So is that rooftop?
Yes. Yep. So this will all three.
I mean, the way on.
Yep. So this will be rooftop here. Again, that you can kind of see the steps up to it.
She was meaning, I think, though, the other portion, the private residential,
oh, yes,
is that
the private
rooftop?
residential? Yeah. So this will be like, I'm not sure exactly how many feet up, but probably like another 4 feet above that publicly available, so that there's a little, there's a little separation between that. But it's not supposed to be a large. It's not going to be like those five stories up.
Quick question on this.
Sure.
There's like seating area here. Is there any retail space on those public areas or no?
Underneath, yes.
Underneath it. Okay.
Underneath it, but not on this seating area and stuff. So,
Okay.
What they kind of expressed to me during the approval process is that, this could be used as additional seating for restaurant spaces, things like that. So we would anticipate that would most likely be allowed. So
the public space is in lieu of green space then?
Not necessarily. It does allow, there is a portion of the property that is green space. So one of the aspects in the previous, or in all the memorandum of understandings and the new development agreements that you guys have inputted, that there has to be, and I apologize if I butcher what it was called, like a central feature. So a central feature that ties the commercial and the residential together as part of that memorandum of understanding. And that's what this is. Okay. There is still the requirement for, I believe, 20% of the site to be open space, which we do include their outdoor amenities, so pools, pickleball courts, those types of things. So going back to the site plan, for example.
And I think they've exceeded that.
Oh, they
correct?
definitely have. They do have this frontage along Little Cottonwood Creek. They will have some setback along Galleria Drive here due to the there's large power poles that go along here, so it has to be set back a little bit further than what is traditionally required in that zone. Also along behind the retail area A, there's going to be additional seating area. So they definitely have met that 20% aspect. Okay, sorry, I keep flipping through slides here. Okay, so this is just kind of a couple renderings of that rooftop space. I can zoom in on these a little bit too, so you can see them a little better. So you can see the tables, chairs, kind of green space. And then, yeah, this will just be closed off and over to the private residential portion. Then above, that's just kind of a regular view of that. And then this is the last building. There will be a small component of retail here. This is also, I believe, where they'll have their leasing office when the project's all complete. It's just a smaller building. Okay, so the Planning Commission approved held a public meeting and voted 5-0 to approve the master site plan and conditional use permit on October 7th, 2021. 65 notices were sent to all the property owners within 500 feet of the subject property and all affected entities. I believe we had, I can't cite exactly, but I think we had a couple people come in and speak to the item, but it wasn't like a large number of people. So with that, the Planning Division staff is recommending that the City Council adopt the resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the memorandum of understanding for the 4800 Lofts mixed-use project at 447 West, 4800 South.
Question?
Questions, comments?
There are no issues with water or sewer or any of the infrastructure. That was all passed.
That was all passed. That was all reviewed during the master site plan application. We send every application through what's called a planning review meeting that goes to every single department in the city. And they reviewed and signed off on all of them.
Is that an area though that would have an updated, we are looking to update the sewer, or is it just already okay, good to go?
I
now?
don't recall. Okay,
Oh, okay, sorry.
we'll let Danny speak to it.
Yeah.
This has been master planned for a while. We
Right.
knew that there would be higher densities coming, and all of those pieces, especially the sewer, has been updated to meet the future needs generally in that area. So
Okay. I figured it
we're
was.
ready for it.
All right. I had do you want to go? You want me to ask questions?
Go ahead. I'll wait.
I have a quick question, and this is just more to be a little bit more transparent. Can you talk a little bit about the MOU we did for the Kmart site? Was that under the mayor as well, or how was that?
I believe it was also, I believe you guys also authorized the mayor to sign
Okay.
the memorandum of understanding. This is the exact same process. The documentation, the format of the MOU is almost a carbon copy of the Kmart one, just with those two other added pieces for the emergency access and the publicly open space.
Okay, that was my question. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Definitely.
So I have a question. Why are we being presented this when it's not a legislative? So I don't understand that. Maybe GL can give me some clue on that. I mean, when we okay a project like this, it's going to look like we're what? Yes.
I agree with you because we're voting on something we really don't have any
And it
opinion.
makes
We can't
us
make an
council
opinion on it.
members. It makes us council members like,
Let
there you go.
I'll try to explain a little bit real quick, and then I'll turn it over to GL. You guys aren't approving the project. We'll be straight up honest. You're not approving the project. That's what I was trying to make clear in the presentation. This was already approved by the Planning Commission. Your role,
So why are we even looking
right?
at this?
Your role is because the Planning Commission cannot enter into contracts. Only the legislative body can enter into contracts. And so we are making sure that we get these teeth. I like to use teeth analogies, I'm
Yes,
noticing.
you do.
So we have these
Sometimes
teeth
it's
on
gums.
this. Yeah. And gums, teeth. These are not gums. These are teeth to the developer saying you shall develop this project in this way as it was deemed by the Planning Commission. Anybody in the future that may come forward, they have to develop this project in this way. These have to be, these spaces have to be open. It has to be developed in these two phases. It has to have that emergency access. That is what you guys are signing off on, is that the Planning Commission made this decision and you're saying, I'm not going to say anymore.
We're approving the guardrails.
You're approving the guardrails.
We're not approving the project. We're approving the strict guidelines, parameters.
So,
You've been
so
leaning
Still,
this is one of those issues that there's not a really good solution. And the issue is when you have mixed use horizontal, everybody's clear on what that is, right? You've got separate buildings, not the same building. When you build vertical, you have to build that ground floor to build the rest of it. So you get your commercial. Here, the problem is how do you get your commercial? And I'm not speaking to any specific developer, just the circumstances of horizontal use. If you're a developer and you're going to put in residential first because that's where you can fill it up, there's a big demand for that. What's the incentive for you to come back later and actually build retail or commercial? And this is trying to incentivize that by having an agreement that says you're going to need to build it. That's all this is. It is somewhat perfunctory. I don't love it. It's just the way we have it. And it's about the best we could do at this point. My preference would be to have some sort of ordinance provision that says this is how you'll do it, and then the mayor could sign off on it and you would never have to see it.
Yeah.
But as you've seen tonight, you've gotten a lot of questions. You've had a lot of questions about the details that are already approved.
Yeah, so
Right,
we're being
so-
asked to move something forward that we can't do anything about.
What I could do, which I think would probably help when you actually, assuming you do vote to sign this at the next meeting, is we can put if you look at the agreement, I don't know how many of you have actually looked at the agreement, all those things that have already been approved, we could put in the whereas clauses and simply say, whereas the planning commission has approved this and approved this and approved this and approved this, and leave for you all that you're actually approving. If that would, I think that would,
Yes.
that would make me feel better if I was you. So maybe we can do
Yes.
the same thing here. And then it's clear who did what. And yeah, then we probably have it so where you're more satisfied with it.
Yeah, and I think we have an opportunity to kind of get into the teeth of it all.
Yeah.
With GL, and then kind of come back to the council before the next meeting.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
there's
can
time.
help.
There's
we
time.
Can, we can assist with the drafting and just put those things. It'll be the same language, but it'll just be in a different place in the agreement that'll make it clear that the planning commission has already approved the project.
So if you're mad, go to the planning commission. Don't
And Brett
We can do
and the
that.
mayor.
Are the applicants here that want this project? Okay.
Yes.
So if we were to say, no, we don't like this project, then what would happen?
So you'll get sued and we'll lose.
That's exactly what I knew where GL was going to go with that. Comes a lawsuit.
I know what I figured,
and
but I
can I-
wanted
No,
you
it's
to
a good
say
question.
it.
And that's the problem that horizontal use kind of poses is how do you get this? How do you make that clear that you're going to have to do the commercial and retail? And it's not, you have to understand from a developer's perspective, a lot of things change during a project. It could be a couple of years before you really get things going and underway. And then what happens with the economy? And now you've got commercial requirement, but you don't have anybody out there wanting to come into those commercial places. So it's a tough thing for them as well. And our point is, this is a difficult problem. This was the best solution we have so far. So we're asking you to go with this solution when we come back the next meeting and just recognize that your role in signing this, because it's required by the ordinance, are those things that Zach touched on, the public spaces, that type of thing. That's all you're really approving.
And I want to commend GL and all the previous city attorneys that you guys have had in the past, in that you guys have not had to deal with a lot of administrative decisions in the past, where your hands are tied and you have to vote on something, like the planning commission often has to do. A lot of their decisions are administrative, and if it meets certain criteria, they have to vote yes. GL has buffered you guys from having to do that by placing that under the land use authority. And so you guys are really, this is just a different role for you guys. A lot of cities, like my city, Midvale, for example, they have to switch hats back and forth throughout the night on what's a legislative item, what's an administrative item.
Yeah.
And that can be very confusing for them. So I think GL and the city attorneys have done a really good job kind of buffering you from that so you guys can really focus on your legislative items. So
Also, the other thing that comes into play here is the form of government. There are other forms of government who have a mayor, but not a strong mayor. And in those instances, the city council actually does have administrative responsibilities as well as legislative responsibilities. So there's a lot of crossover in those cities.
I think that gave a lot of clarity, at least for me. Any other questions?
Do we want the applicant to come up at all or no? No, no, we don't need to.
Unless you guys have specific
I'm fine.
questions in the
No.
committee of the whole. Otherwise, I think they'll be here for adoption that night.
Thank
so.
you guys.
And you
Sorry.
mentioned really
Thanks for being
quickly,
here.
you mentioned
you guys can be in the
they
hot
put the
seat.
residential in first, then the commercial?
No.
Or- sorry,
So,
say it one more time.
Yeah, so I'll go back.
Okay, perfect.
So the blue is phase 1. So they will put in, there is this retail building.
Uh-huh.
Here, I can do this because I've been doing it all night. So there is a retail building. This is entirely retail. This will be part of phase 1.
hmm
This building here
Your
encompasses.
pointer's gone, so
just
I don't
kidding.
know if
Ha,
you're
ha, ha, ha.
pointing to something.
Yes, I am. That's so weird. And it won't let me put.
You can leave it zoomed out. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. So yes, this retail building is completely retail. That has to be built as part of phase 1.
Okay.
This building here includes residential and retail. And that has to be built in phase 1. And I apologize, let me,
And the retail has to be actually filled. Like people need. No, it does not.
no, has to be
It has
built.
to be
Built, but
Yes.
not
Can
necessarily.
you talk a little bit more on why we require that? First, yes.
The phases.
The phases of, because I think that's kind of where the hang up is
Sure. So the
a little bit
reason
the
why
history behind it.
the reason why we want these separated into phases, kind of like GL touched on, we don't want them to build, because I could see at some point, if we didn't have this, that they build this residential building here
Mhm.
and say, oh, we're going to build this retail portion later.
Mhm.
And then they come in and provide another building permit for this one, which, let's see, phase 2 building B
Mhm.
has a majority of the units of 228 units.
Right.
So then they come in and apply for their building permit for building 220 or the 228 unit building, and then they're like, oh, okay, we can't do the retail anymore, so we're just not going to build it, and we're going to move on, sell the project, and bump that down the road. This, in the memorandum of understanding, says you shall build this retail both here and here, along with this smaller building. And then once these are built, then you can apply for your building permits for this larger building with the smaller retail attached to it as well.
And we want retail because it provides a better tax base.
Well,
that-
not necessarily tax base. It creates that mixed use feel.
Okay.
It allows for
So it
those
hits the-
users. It's
so-
really to make sure that the project is a mixed use project
I understand.
and is not a
Simply residential.
multifamily project at super high densities
And
with
even-
no services.
And these are all rentals, if I'm understanding correctly.
Correct.
Even for existing areas. I mean, I used to live in apartments right there. And ever since Moe's closed, and if you ever went to Moe's, a delight. I mourn it daily. It's gone. But that was the real only walkable retail in that area for a huge population of people living in that high density area. So I'm excited for the retail for those residents who already live right there. Because right now there's nothing to walk to. May Rose Diner, rest in
What I
peace.
think a big
Yeah.
part of, and what I kind of wanted you to touch on a little bit is that in the past we haven't had, well, and not necessarily Murray, right? But there has been development that comes in and they don't even put in the retail. So we wanted to make sure that we were getting that in the first phase.
Mhm.
And right, that's kind of what the idea
Yeah,
was even
definitely.
before Kmart
Yep.
and the
And for-
reasoning for it.
For example, there are already 2 tenants that will be coming in to the Kmart site. I don't think I'm at liberty to disclose who they are yet. But
Yay.
but they already are filling in their retail with users because that MOU is saying you shall have this built within 5 years. I believe is what's in it. You have to have this built within 5 years. The Kimballs aren't going to just let it sit and they're going to pay taxes on empty buildings. They may, but they're getting users, is what I'm trying to say.
And that's one of the questions from a resident talked about, is the commercial space.
Mm-hmm.
And I circled that, and I'm very curious, what experience does the applicant have, or what strategies will they use to ensure the commercial portion of the project will be successful? So that was one of the questions I had. And also, using the reason from the same gentleman, he says, I think using the distance from the rail station as a justification to allow greater density west of I-15 is unwarranted. So I had a question about that also, because from the project to the track station, which I had a question when the legislative people were here, I had a question about the distance that it
Sure.
doesn't warrant it. It's
So,
not walkable
Um,
to the track station. And so that's what.
and I will say currently that's true. Us as planners, we need to look 20, 30, 50 years in the future and what this neighborhood looks like in the future. So yes, it may not look or feel walkable right now, but this will help to create that a little bit more. Remind me of your second question.
It was just about the commercial.
Oh.
And what experience the
Okay.
applicant has
Yeah.
in doing
I
commercial.
I would definitely bring that up to them during oh, please, Jared wants to.
Sorry, I'm just gonna, I don't want to muddy the waters at all because I think the explanation is perfectly clear. So keep in mind, I think what you need to keep in mind is that tonight it's committee of the whole. You're just discussing the issues here, right? When you're asked to vote on it, you're going to be asked to vote on not the project and not even on the memorandum of understanding. You're going to be asked to vote on a resolution allowing the mayor to sign it, which he has to do by ordinance.
Right.
So it's a foregone conclusion. But
I needed
to
bring
that
these
that
up
point,
for the citizens.
yeah, and I think to speak to that point, I'm going to remind you of something that Zach brought up real quickly in the beginning. We have adjusted the densities and parking requirements and even the commercial requirements for these kind of projects in this area. This project was vested as an application before we made those adjustments. So for example, if it were coming in under the new ordinance, it's in the MCMU West sub-district. Yeah. So it would get 40 units to the acre, significantly about half of what it's planned at. It would have less commercial requirements because we recognize there's not a great need for so much commercial there, and it would have more parking available to it. And your MOU would look a little different. But it was vested already under the old code, and they went the distance to provide all that open space and provide that parking and make it work. So that's really where we are. And all the things that are in that MOU that you're going to be voting on a resolution about are covered in the master site plan that was approved for this. They're already part of what's required. The Planning Commission just needs a way to say, we need a more effective method as planners when it's going through the process of getting building permits. We need a really easy way to look at it and say, no, you agreed in this contract with the city that you would not get any permits for phase 2, not a single one, until phase 1 is done. So don't come and ask for those permits. And we have an easy way to point back to it. That's what it's for.
Quick question, because I didn't see it in the packet. Do we have the original application? Usually we get those within our packet, and even who's been contacted in terms of like the neighborhood.
So this does not get a public hearing. It's a business item. So yeah. So, and because we weren't, I'm trying to say this delicately, because we're not reviewing the project,
Right.
I didn't want to include the details of the
Sure.
project.
Sure.
Because that's not
Yeah,
what we're
I think
reviewing.
That's clear.
Okay.
We do need to, GL has, I think, one more thing to say, and then we do need to
Just
move on.
That's
Real
fine.
quickly, I just wanted to say that in terms of your first question about commercial and their ability, we don't legislate that either. We simply provide the means, and if they can do it, they can do it. If they can't, they can't. And so to ask them about their financial and their experience and things like that would probably be inappropriate at a situation like this. Now, there are other times when we do. If we were putting money into the project, we want to make sure that it succeeded. We would have a provision like that. But right now, we don't necessarily bring them up and say, how can you do this?
Thank you. And thank you for all the clarifications on what we are doing and what we're not doing and what it all means. I know it is something outside of our practice that we're used to. So I appreciate all the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
And I appreciate it. I will say that unfortunately I won't be here to present it at the next meeting. Jared will be presenting it. I will be at the National Planning Conference in San Diego.
Excellent.
So
Learn lots.
I will bring lots of info back for you guys. So
Sounds great. Thank
have a
you.
good night.
All right, our last item here for Committee of the Whole is Robin's presenting discussion on an ordinance amending Section 2.62.120 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to employee holiday vacations. Hi, Robin.
Good evening. Before you is an ordinance amending employee holidays to add Juneteenth National Freedom Day as a paid city holiday. Last year, the federal government established Juneteenth as an official federal holiday, and this year Juneteenth was adopted by Utah as an official state holiday to be observed on the third Monday in June. The city's current holiday schedule provides 11 and a half paid holidays and 3 personal preference days for a total of 14 and a half paid holidays. This amendment proposes adding Juneteenth in place of one of the 3 personal preference days. This year is kind of unique. The personal preference days are added. They're kind of dumped into employees' payroll leave banks at the beginning of the year. So many employees have probably already used their personal preference days there because they're use it or lose it. So this year we would propose not to take away any of the personal preference days that have already been awarded, but instead keep them. So it would be a small fiscal impact this year. Police and fire are provided in lieu of holiday wages. So we would compensate them just to keep things equitable between career service and public safety employees. The fiscal impact would be around $41,500. And so I can answer any questions you guys have.
Our personal preference in addition to annual.
Yeah, so employees have sick leave bank, vacation bank, personal preference days, and then the holidays.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? All right. I think this is really exciting. So I'm glad that you're bringing it forward. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we will adjourn if there's no objections, and I'll see you back at 6:30.
we're going to wait for a few more minutes for Pam. There she is. Huh? Okay. Welcome everybody to City Council. I wanted to say Committee of the Whole, but it's not Committee of the Whole. It's the City Council. It is 6:30. I am Rosalba Dominguez, and I will be conducting tonight's council meeting. So welcome everyone. I had asked someone to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but she's doing a service project. She is Carissa from the Boys and Girls Club, who just got nominated or received an award from the state. So she's going to come back and circle around next time I conduct. We keep missing her. This is the second time I've asked her. But she's an amazing person. So I'm going to do the pledge because why not? Nobody's asked me to do it. So if everybody can stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. Good job, Rosalba. All right. So we are going to go ahead and move on to approval of minutes for March 8th. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, updates?
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion if there's no comments or changes.
All right.
Oh, wait.
I'll
Waiting
make
for
an-
Pam. Hold on one second.
I read these very thoroughly.
Thank
I'll
you.
make a motion for
Wait,
approval.
Hold on,
of-
Diane.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead now.
All right, now I'll make a motion for approval of the minutes for the council meeting March 8th, 2022.
All right. Can I get a second?
I second it.
All right. Thank you. I have a first and a second. Do you want to go to call roll?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and move to our special recognition. Item number 1, Murray City Council Employee of the Month, Jared Hall, Community and Economic Development Director. Mayor Hales and myself will be, Danny and myself. Sorry, I wrote notes all weird on this, and myself will be presenting. So go ahead, Danny. Okay. Hello, everyone. This feels weird. Oh, I guess I am addressing to the council. Hello. Last time I was here, I was getting elected. I just won, or the oath of office. So this is kind of weird. Okay. So I will read the reason for recognition for Jared. Jared has always shown his ability to diffuse difficult situations with a calm demeanor and soothing voice. It is true. However, this is not all of his talents. Jared is always willing to share his talents and experience, not just in the planning division, but also in assisting the building division with his language skills. He is often asked to help the building division at the counter to use his Spanish language skills and act as interpreter. Awesome. I didn't know that, but yay. On occasion, Jared has been willing to accompany the city building officials to a job site where he has been able to act as an interpreter to help the property owner or contractor understand what is being required. The building, I will say I do appreciate that. about you the most on the council. The building division is very appreciative for his willingness to assist them. This is just one of the ways that Jared works to make sure that we are providing the best customer service experience possible. We are fortunate he is a part of the CED staff. Additionally, many of us have witnessed how Jared has the ability to help others understand difficult land use issues and works diligently to help all stakeholders, Murray City administration, citizens, developers, Planning Commission, City Council, fully understand the issues and identify best remedies. All right, I will turn it over to Danny. Oh, yeah. Let me give you the certificate, and we will have Mayor Hales also sign that for you. Here is your gift card, and as Brett says, give that to your wife.
She's supposed to meet me later.
Well, I asked him if anybody was going to be here, and he said he couldn't get anybody here, so you might as well keep the card for yourself. Put it in your wallet. It's on the public airways now, so who knows? So so this started long before the process started for finding a new CED director, and when the other director left, I was asked to serve as the interim director of community and economic development. And one of my first meetings that I had with the building division, I met with them separately, the planning and then building. One of my first meetings, they mentioned how much they appreciated Jared, and the next staff meeting with the mayor's staff, they asked, we're looking for, names of those that we could recognize for employee of the month, and so at each of the divisions I talked to them, and nobody in the planning division mentioned Jared, but the building division said, we got to recognize Jared. I'm just kidding about the planning division. They love him, but we needed to recognize. And then I went through some of the reasons, and of course, Rosalba read some of those things, and I think it's we don't know the number of skills that Jared has. He doesn't let them out very often. It's the word's out now. He has a Spanish language and he works it, so he knows it and he uses it to create good customer relations with our citizens and with developers and builders, and so he was a good choice, council, as you chose and confirmed Jared as the new director. But we started this before he became the director, or even before we started looking for a new director. So now we're here tonight, and we were talking that maybe this is just, it's always Jared. But it's okay, because I like Jared. He's a great guy, and everybody knows his great sense of humor, and he does have a soothing voice, and you probably recognize that. You know when Jared's talking, you want to go, oh yeah, that feels good. So so anyway, it's with pleasure that that I got a chance to recognize him with the council, and so now I'm going to turn the time over to Jared, and you better be careful, Jared.
You bet. Thank you. That's really nice. Okay.
Make sure to take that too.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say. So my family came for the swearing in, and it took a long time to get to it. So they have trust issues with me and council presentations at this point. But I have to say how much I appreciate it. It's really nice, and the things that Danny and Rosalba read and said, and it's I work with the best employees in the city. The CED department is tireless, and they make us look good. So I have to give a shout out to them for that. And by rules of South America, I have to state that I don't speak Spanish. I speak Castellano. So I think something bad happens to you if you don't state that. So, but thank you all very much. We really do appreciate what you do, and it's nice to be recognized. And I'm not going to tell anyone about the gift card since they didn't come. So, thank you very much.
Hopefully they're not watching, Jared. Congratulations.
Jared, Jared, Jared.
Does anybody on the council have anything to say? No? All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm proud of you, Jared, and I'm glad I was able to be able to present that. So thank you. All right. We will move on to special presentation, and Mayor Hales will be presenting the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget address.
Thank you, Rosalba. It's still strange to hear even Rosalba when you say Mayor Hales. It's almost like it's a joke when you say that. But, going through this process has been a really great experience for me. Being on the council for 10 years previous, it's just a different aspect that you get with the budget. And it's exciting for me when I look at this and it reads, consider resolution for acknowledging receipt of the fiscal year of 2022-2023 tentative budget. I love that because it gives more eyes to look at it. And as a council member, I always appreciated that. And I want every one of you to know that we as an administration have full respect for you when you go through this and look at it, that we'll honor what you ask and without any hesitation. So we appreciate you as a council. And I just want to recognize a few people. Brenda, she does an amazing job. I'm telling you, I think we need to give her a round of applause because everyone does great. The department heads were wonderful. Brenda asked that they would come in with some lower amounts, and they came in with just over 100,000. Is that correct, Brenda? It was impressive to see that happen. Now, we saw that happen during the pandemic, and it's hard sometimes to do that, because there's so much need. It's interesting, the citizens are concerned about certain things, of course, taxes, but they're also concerned that their toilets flush, that their lights go on. That is a huge thing, and sometimes we take that for granted. So, and the department heads, I just want to give to acknowledge all the department heads. They were amazing when they came in and presented their budget. So it's going to be an honor to work with you and to watch I think it's on May 4th, that you'll be meeting with the department heads. So it'll be an honor to be able to watch that from our side. So without further ado, I'm just here to now turn the budget over to you as a council. And I think that's it.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mayor Brett Hales.
Thank you.
I won't get tired of ever saying that. So, all right, we'll move on to item number 2 for special presentation and consider a resolution acknowledging receipt of the fiscal year 2022-2023 tentative budget from the Mayor Hales, and the budget officer, and referring the mayor's tentative budget for review and consideration to the Budget and Finance Committee of the Murray City Municipal Council. So with this, we take a motion.
I'll make the motion. I move we approve the resolution acknowledging receipt of the fiscal year 2022-2023 tentative budget from the mayor and the budget officer, and referring to the mayor's tentative budget for review and consideration to the Budget and Finance Committee of the Murray City Municipal Council.
I'll second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Can you call roll, please?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right.
Rosalba, can I say one more thing? I know,
Yes.
one more thing. I forgot I want to be able to acknowledge our administration, Tammy and Doug. Doug's amazing. Kathy's been out of town. She's been in Scotland picking up a daughter that was on a service mission. And Doug blows my mind. He knew how to change appointments. He knew how to change meeting to a Zoom meeting. He impressed the heck out of me. So I know my decision. I questioned it before if I was going to, but now I don't question anymore, Doug. Yeah, you know I'm kidding. Anyway, so thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Doug. And Kathy, she'll be back in tomorrow. And believe it or not, Kathy's family got stuck. A couple of her family members in Scotland, they tested positive when they were getting on the plane, and I think they're there for 10 days. Can I just tell you, we're sad that her family got stuck, but we're very grateful that she's back tomorrow. So that we're thankful for. But anyway, I want to make sure I acknowledge them also. Thank
Well,
you.
you guys did a good job. It doesn't seem like there was a hiccup. So thank you guys. Well, perfect. We will go ahead and move on to the citizen comments portion of our agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Jennifer will be taking, keeping time. So please step up to the microphone, state your name, city of residence, and fill out a required form. I also like to ask if you can, instead of saying your address, you can say which district you reside in or represent, please. Thank you so much. Anyone wanting to come up to the podium? It's pretty fun. Yeah? Nobody? Okay. All right. Well, I will go ahead and now close citizen comments and move on to our consent agenda, and Mayor Hales will be presenting and consider confirmation of the mayor's appointment of Brian Plamadon, to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for the term of January 2022 to January 2025. Go ahead, Mayor Hales.
Thank you. Brian, will you come up? There's a method to my madness of having you come up. I'm going to have you whisper in my ear and say how you say the last name correctly. Plamondon. Rosalba, don't worry. I was going to say the exact thing that you said, and I know Brian.
Thank you.
I've been, yeah. So anyway, but we're excited to ask for a confirmation for Brian's appointment to our Parks and Rec. Brian is very qualified. Brian is he's overqualified. He is so qualified in so many areas, and it's impressive. How long have you lived in Murray?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half. He's off of 59th, and you're my neighbor. And let me just tell you, we were impressed when we had the opportunity to meet with Brian, and I know you were too when you looked at his resume. So before I ask Brian to say anything, I'm just going to mention, I won't have you say much, but I just want to tell you that we highly recommend Brian, and we ask for your confirmation for Brian's appointment on the Parks and Rec Board.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Harold. Sorry, I was just kind of re-looking at your resume. So thank you. And thank you for your service, by the way. Anybody have any comments or concerns or?
Thank you very much for your willingness to serve. We really do appreciate it.
And Brian's also served our country.
Yeah, in the Marine Corps.
All right.
So thank you.
It's nice to meet you.
Yes.
Very nice to meet you all.
All right. I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the confirmation of the mayor's appointment of Brian P. to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for a term of January. Hey, I got the last
Coming
name,
from
I couldn't
Herrecacy,
believe,
I
yeah.
love it.
For a term from January 2022 to January 2025.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you. I got a first and a second. We will go ahead and take the vote.
Aye.
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 I just want to, yes. No, you're fine. Ms. Rosalba. I'll be Ms. Rosalba.
I like it.
You know, having a difficult name too, so I apologize first and
Now, who-
foremost, but practice makes perfect,
No
and
one's
that's what
called
I
you
always
anything besides Dominguez. You
So
haven't
say
heard
it one more time
And-
again for us.
It's Plamondon.
Plamondon.
Can I have Brian just come, just say hi real quick?
say. Yes, please come up.
Well, Brian Plamondon, we've already gone over that a couple of times. I actually almost got a call sign from my last name because nobody could spell it or pronounce it correctly. It almost ended up being dinosaur. So Plamondon related to the mastodon, who knows? So just appreciate the opportunity. This kind of derived from sitting down with friends and discussing with them, and then a fortune cookie. And then all of these things kind of came together to just me throwing my resume up to in front of you. So thank you very much. I suppose my time in service is not quite done, which is why I'm here and happy to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Service is never quite done if you've done it for your life. Congratulations.
For a second there, I thought he was telling us how his last name came about, and I was like, a fortune cookie. This is getting very interesting. My friends
how
talked about it,
Harakasi
then I
came
saw
about?
a fortune cookie. You know.
All right. We like to have a good time apparently today. All right, we will go ahead and move on to our public hearing portion of the agenda and consider an ordinance amending sections 17.144.020 and 17.144.030 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to permitted and conditional uses in the GO zone. Jared Hall will be presenting.
I warned you I was staying.
That's why your wife didn't come, Jared.
That's right. That's probably true.
Continue.
Let's see. All right. Thanks again for listening to me for one more time this evening. And like you said, these are amendments that the Planning Division has proposed relating to the conditional uses and the permitted uses that are allowed in the general office zone. I wanted to start out by making it clear that these are amendments that are just related to those uses. It doesn't have to do with the buffers that are required or the sign ordinance as it relates to this zone or the height or anything like that. It's just the uses in the list and only for the GO zone. That's the zone that you can see here in the blue, that kind of light blue. If I remove all the other zones, you can see it a little bit better. This is a zone that's mostly applied near residential areas and along corridors, higher traffic areas. It's been a zone in Murray for a long time. There's been a lot of development under that zone and its configurations. So most of the stock of the building stock in that zone is older. There are some newer buildings, as you can see down in this right-hand corner. This is the Think Architecture building up on 9th East. Some other buildings. This office complex is located near Van Winkle and 4800 South. And you can see they're usually smaller, shorter buildings. There are a couple of stories, a lot of surface parking, outside entrances for lots of them for individual offices. The stock of this in this zone is kind of starting to age a bit. And one of the reasons that we wanted to bring forward some of these changes was to increase the number of kinds of tenants that these property owners can get. We see higher vacancy rates in these buildings in the GO zone than in the newer office zone and the professional office zone. Lots of offices going up in the CD zone as well. And those attract the tenants. We need to increase the base of tenants so that there are more choices for landlords. There's a lot of different, there's a red line version of this that you've had attached, and that'll be part of the adoption ordinance, but you can basically sum up the changes that we're proposing in three parts. First, we would be moving some uses that are already allowed as conditional uses from the conditional use list to the permitted use list. And just as a reminder, and for anybody from the public that's not familiar with that, in every zone, there are uses that are permitted, that are just allowed, and just if you're one of those uses, you come in and get a business license. And there's those that are conditional, where you have to go see the Planning Commission and be reviewed before your use is allowed. One of those conditional uses, or a couple of them that are in the conditional use list in the GO zone that we would like to move to permitted uses, are beauty and barbering services and portrait photography. We don't see a lot of need for the Planning Commission's review of those two kinds of uses when they're going to be allowed for licenses in this zone. Another change that we're proposing is adding a few to the permitted use list, again, like we said, to increase that availability of different uses for those office spaces. Commercial photography, shoe repair, Reiki. We already allow massage and things like that, so we figured Reiki very much the same way. We oddly don't allow life coaching offices or consulting offices. They have to go be considered in some other way or go to the CD zone. Direct mail and other advertising offices, watch and jewelry repair. And a third item, or the third kind of category, would be adding some things to the lists that don't already exist there, but to the conditional use list rather than the permitted use list. And for those, we have dry cleaning facilities, pick up and drop off, body art and tattoo studios, locksmiths, and camera and musical instrument repair facilities. So those are ones where we think there might be issues of hours, or we want to make sure that signage isn't a problem, things like that. So very simple to apply the rules of the GO zone with our conditional use review and just make it clear to the applicants that we have to have those things obeyed. So those are our proposed changes. The Planning Commission did hold a hearing on February 17th. Notices were sent to all the affected entities and to the departments. None of the city departments had any concerns with us expanding that base. They didn't feel like there would be any problems associated with that. And we didn't receive any comments from other affected entities as well. The Planning Commission did vote unanimously 6-0 to forward a recommendation of approval to you all tonight. So we are still recommending that as staff as well. And these findings basically reiterate the kinds of things that I've already said. We feel like these will not cause problems in the geo zone. There's already buffering requirements in place. The sign code is specific for geo zone. They're not allowed pole signs and EMC signs and things like that. They have monument signs and wall-mounted signs. That shouldn't be a problem. The text amendments support the goals and objectives of the general plan, mixing up uses and allowing transitions and buffers to be better accommodating. And the Planning Commission did vote for it. And then again, the text amendments are consistent with the purpose of that zone. Do you have any questions for staff at this point?
You mentioned that one of your concerns with putting those 4 into the conditional was, you said signage, but you then said the signage is already very dictated. So
it is. It's sometimes with conditional uses, it's nice to have that reiterated. And when there are violations of code existing, with conditional use, we're allowed to impose, what am I trying to say? For example, when there's landscaping that's missing, or when a sign is inappropriate and going to be used, there are rules under non-conforming uses to allow that to stay. It can't be expanded, and it's a moment when we can get compliance in some cases with things that haven't been in compliance in the past. And it's an opportunity for us to say, for example, that we have to comply with rules about window signs that get ignored in these kind of situations sometimes. We're not out there seeing all of these buildings all the time. So when we bring an applicant in, we get to go over all those kinds of things and make sure they're complying.
And so that's why you'd put it as conditional.
Yeah.
So you want to, okay.
And honestly too, if we did need to impose some further restrictions on signage, we could under conditional uses. If we could find, if the Planning Commission reviews that rule, let's say that, I can't think of a good example with signs, but let's say that there were a sign was allowed as a pole sign, but we didn't feel like because of the light that would be associated with that pole sign near a residential area, that we didn't want to allow them to have the pole sign, and we could have the Planning Commission make a finding that it would be obtrusive, so they would back up a condition saying you're only going to be allowed a monument sign in this case. That's not the case here because you're only allowed monuments anyway, but pretend it were. That's why we do conditional uses, to impose conditions that would mitigate any harmful impacts that we can reasonably expect. Might be signs, might be landscaping, might be parking, might be hours of operation.
When we discussed this at the committee of the whole at our last meeting, my concern was the signage, especially with the tattoos, because you look on State Street and you see signs that say tattoos and they're not very attractive. So I was concerned about that. And
Jared, can you talk a little bit about why it's tattoo studio versus a tattoo parlor?
Sure. So we generally don't use the term tattoo parlor anymore. We talk about body art and tattoo studios because they do multiple kinds of body art and tattoos. And they're one of the reasons that we wanted to expand the base of allowed uses was that a lot of things have changed. People use, we already recognize this in lots of ways. Estheticians, for example, I'm going to use estheticians instead of body art for a second.
That's fine.
Estheticians right now are covered under beauty parlors. So an esthetician has to go before the Planning Commission to get approved to go into an office zone. But a massage facility does not. But we kind of consider those types of uses have similar impacts. And there are stigmas for things that don't exist anymore, and tattooing is becoming like that. The way they operate has changed a lot. They operate more like studios and less like parlors. The hours are more like an art studio would be, or a beauty parlor would be, a beauty studio. I'm violating my own language rule. They're more in line with those kinds of uses, so we felt like that would make more sense. Body art is becoming a more expanded activity, and we felt like that needed a change in name too. So, Rosalba, does that answer your question? Kind of.
Yes. I mean, I kind of wanted you to expand a little bit more on that. So,
Sure.
yes.
And with signage, sorry, Diane, with relation to signage, and Gary, because you were asking about it too, lots of the State Street tattoo shops, they want to be open 24 hours a day, and we don't have an issue with that. In the Geo Zone, we won't allow that kind of thing typically, and we'd want to control that because they're more in the residential areas and buffering things. And the same goes for that kind of signage. That kind of signage might be intrusive, and we would want to control that through conditional use.
Okay, any other questions from the council?
Is there anybody here that is going to be moving into the geo zone that would like to speak? Or do we not allow
I think
that?
I saw Donnell's, well, it's public hearing
It's a
tonight,
public
so
hearing.
you would have public.
Okay.
And
I was
think
just
saw
curious
Donnell's.
if there was anybody that could
Yeah.
speak on that. We have.
Do
one-
we want to do that now or do we want to do that at the
Whenever you're
public
ready.
hearing? Yeah, we could do it. We can do it now. So Donnell, if you want to come up. Yeah. Oh, open the public hearing first? Okay. All right, hold on. I mean, you can stand there. Please stand there. I am going to go ahead and open the public hearing for any public comments. And again, public hearing, you'll have 3 minutes to come up to step to the microphone, state your name, residence, and fill out a form, of course, with Jennifer. And then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Oh, in district. So if we already know. Yeah. Just restate what district you're in, Donnell. Thank you.
I'm horrible at speaking, but I'm Donnell Lewis. I am going to be in District 3, Rosalba. I am moving into a geo zone, and I love the fact that it is going to be conditional with a body art studio. I'm actually the individual that a lot of tattoo parlors hate because I do not believe tattoo parlors need to be on State Street anymore. I am tired of the signs. I'm tired of the actual setup that these places have and the reputation that they are giving. The reason for that is not because I hate them per se, it's because we are missing a conversation between ourselves and like you guys of what actually we're doing. Utah controls the tattoo industry and no one knows this because of the representation that we're getting. We take care of all the aftercare. We produce all the bottles. We do a lot of the manufacturing for the industry worldwide here in Utah, but there's no representation there. And it's because there's a lot of old individuals that have these tattoo parlors that want tattoo signs, that want to be on State Street and prime real estate, and they bring down our actual business that's going on. They're not moving with the times. Myself, I'm moving that to something different. I started this about 4.5 years ago in Mill Creek, opening up the first body art studio. Private, no signage. It needs to be appointment only. There's no walk-ins off the street. It has to be professional. We can actually cater to high-end clientele that can fly in or are professional or in sports or what so have you. This is what we are moving towards. And there's a lot of people that are, and there's older individuals that want to stay on State Street and what so have you, and fine that may be, but there needs to be a condition if you want to move into a building like where I'm trying to move into. You should have these strict rules and abide by them so the city will actually allow us in there and be professional. And then we can go to the actual landlords that own these properties that have a mass amount of availability and let them know, these are the rules I have to abide by. These are the timeframes I'm going to have to abide by. This is the way that my actual location needs to look, and it needs to be professional. So what I'm doing is basically trying to set up 2 different categories. You will have a tattoo parlors here. I can't take them all away. I wish I could, but there is body art studios that want to be private. We want to cater to individuals, and we don't want to be an eyesore. We want to be professional, and we want to continue to grow our industry and actually get the recognition, not only as body art studios, but as a controlling entity within the whole world. And it truly is the whole world that this is all happening here in Utah. And my biggest thing is, coming to Utah, I learned that Utah is probably one of the most proudest states I've ever been in. They're proud. Every city's proud of what happens. So the fact of the matter that there's that miscommunication there, I'm trying to bridge that gap. So.
Thank you, Donnell. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any public comments about this? All right. I will go ahead and close the public comment now. And Jared, if you want to come back up. Council, do you have any other questions?
I just remember watching your presentation during the Planning Commission about a month or so ago. I was very, very impressed with your presentation, and thank you for coming and being part of Murray. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So just clarification, the difference between a parlor and a studio is public versus private, walk-ins versus not? That's been discussed a few times, and I want to make sure my head's straight.
There is no formal distinction in our code right now.
Okay.
The way that Donnell operates, it's more of a studio. We call them body art and tattoo studios now.
Okay.
And
Real distinction for us.
I've been working with Donnell for a few months now, and I think it's come a long ways. But and Donnell would offer this to you as well, as if you kind of want to see the difference, you are welcome to see what he has now. It's a beautiful space. It's kind of set up just like a studio. Everybody has their own individual space, and it's sterile, and it's very professional and centered around the artist as well, and not just necessarily as something I just picked up from my friend or my homie. You know, it's centered around the art itself and in terms of what he's trying to promote. So I think it's a great concept, and I think, you know, Jared and Zach worked really hard with Donnell on this, and I'm really appreciative and proud that we were able to look at this. So thank you so much, and of course the mayor's office too, and starting that journey. So thank you. Anybody else, any other further discussion, and we can go ahead and I will take a motion. Oh, yes, let me close the public hearing. I will go ahead, and I think I already did. No, I did it? Okay, I did, see?
You did.
I did. It's okay, but I'll close it again.
I felt more confident about my nodding head when GL says, yes, you did. And I thought, I'd like to be able to agree with GL.
I mean, I've been trying to remember, so in my mind, I'm like, okay. Thanks, Gary. All right. Well, thank you so much. I will go ahead and take a motion, and then we'll move this forward.
I would like to make a motion of ordinance amending section 17.144.020 and 17.144.030 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to permitted and conditional use in the GO zone.
And I will second that. So if you want to go ahead and call the vote. Thank you.
Aye.
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 Aye. So thank you. Thank you, Jared. Thank you so much in helping us clean our code a little bit.
Yeah.
And congratulations, Donnell. So, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to business item number 1 and consider a resolution approving the mayor's appointment of Ben Ford as the alternate representative to the Central Valley Reclamation Facility Board. Mayor Hales.
Thank you again. This is Ben Ford. Do you all know Ben?
Hi, Ben.
All right, they're all shaking their heads. Yes, Ben has been a huge part of. He comes to all the meetings for our. I can't say. Am I on the wrong one? Yeah, I'm on the wrong one. Anyway, sorry, but for Central Valley, and imagine me 3 months ago getting thrown into this, and I'm not kidding you. I walk into this meeting and I'm thinking, I don't have any idea. I was grateful that I've been on the council because I kind of understood some of it, but I'd look down at Ben and see if he was giving me a head nod or a negative. But Danny has been our alternate, and we all know Danny's moving on to a new world, and so we are asking for your confirmation for Ben Ford to be the alternate for Central Valley. So we'll now turn that over to you.
All right. Well, thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns from the council? No? All right. Of course, there would be no concerns, Ben. So I just got to ask. Anybody, I would like to anybody want to give a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve a resolution for the mayor's appointment of Ben Ford as the alternate representative to the Central Valley Reclamation Facility Board.
I'll second.
Perfect. I got a first and a second. You want to call the vote?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right.
Thanks, Ben.
Have fun.
Thank you. Now, Ben, you don't have to stay. And Brian, you can, I forgot to say that. Usually I'll say, because I know Brian's bored, so he wants to stay. He has nothing else to do. You are welcome to leave. No, every time, usually I say, after you're confirmed, you can get out of here or you can stick around. So that's your
Okay.
choice.
Jared has $50 that he's willing to share. So. Yeah, shake, swig. All right, I will move on to business items. Or what was it? Milkshakes, the dirty milkshakes. All right. I move on to item number 2. Consider an ordinance amending section 12.24.180 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to fees for use of the Murray Park outdoor swimming pool. Kim Sorensen presenting. Thank you, Kim.
Turn that off. I'm here to ask you to consider amending the ordinance that is related to fees charged at the outdoor swimming pool. There's basically 3 areas that'll increase. Adults will go up $1 to $5, children up $1 to $4, and then after our rentals will go from $150 an hour for the first block of 0 to 50 people to $450 an hour, and then $100 for each block of 50 after that. The fees are based on 2 things, based on the average of fees charged for outdoor pools in the valley, and then the other thing that we look at with the rentals is we make sure that we're covering costs. So, any questions?
I just had a quick question. The jump from 150 to 450 is it because other pools are charging? Like, what are the other pools?
So the main reason for that one is to cover costs, but I do have a list of other pools here, and I'll just give you a couple of examples. Rosalba.
Thank you.
Lehigh City is $4.25. This is for the 1 hour as well. West Jordan is $2.25. Layton is $600. North Ogden is $900 to $1,600, depending on the amount of people, and the average comes out to $500. So we're about average, maybe a little bit below average on that one as well.
Do we get a lot of people that rent out the pool?
So we have 40 people that have requested the pool this year.
40?
Uh-huh.
And how many
40
did we
groups.
have last year? How many actual
Well,
rentals?
because of COVID, we haven't done
Oh.
many the last couple of years, and we're not going to be able to accommodate all 40.
Yeah.
We're concerned about being able to hire enough lifeguards, and our priority is being open for the public, but where we can, we'll allow after hours.
And those 40 know about the 450, or they're expecting 150?
40 know about the 450.
Okay.
They are still excited for if you've ever been there, it's a great deal. It's a lot of fun for a private group to use the pool, but
Yeah, it's pretty fun. The other question I have is, is it mostly Murray residents that use it, or is it outside Murray residents?
it's a combination of both.
And could we consider maybe, if you're a Murray resident, a discount of some sort?
We could consider that.
I don't know what that would look like, but
Currently, Salt Lake County, I don't remember the amount they're giving us this year, but currently they give us a little bit to subsidize for lifeguards. So because of that, we've not done resident and non-resident rates at the outdoor pool.
When was the last time we raised rates?
We haven't, to my knowledge, we haven't raised rates on the after hours for,
or just in general,
6
too?
or 7 years, and the same true with the fees.
So this was
fees have remained pretty constant for quite a while.
kind of a ways coming with how we have to pay
Unfortunately,
more for all of our workers.
Unfortunately, that is true.
My only concern is tripling the after-hour rental. I mean,
inflation, Gary.
Yeah, inflation.
I'm just kidding. No, but
Tripled. I don't know. That's my only concern here is, does this make it now cost prohibitive to someone who was going to be able to do it as a family for $150, and now you literally tripled it? So does that move some of our residents out of the ability to use this great?
Yeah, that's
so
why
I have a lot of concern there, tripling it.
I have to say, after looking at what other cities are doing, it seems like it's in line. I mean, it was a red flag too. You see a number jump like that, and that's why we're all asking questions and why we ask questions during committee of the whole too. But we're already seeing the pool have to close because of not enough lifeguards, and if we can't pay them enough, we won't be able to offer it at all.
I will also let you know that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board spent a lot of time discussing exactly what you're talking about, and they determined that where we're still subsidizing a little bit, because even the 450 is covering cost, direct costs. It's not covering the cost of the pool and utilities and different things like that. So
Yeah, and we had discussed that, and you talked about the expense of support staff. I mean, everything that goes into being able to keep the pool open with that many people. I mean, it's a big expense.
it's not going to be any easier this year. But
It's a shocker.
Yeah.
I know. So
Yeah, we're having problems with our daughter's swim as well, her swim team. So I get it. Maybe this is a GL question, but could we incentivize, could we allot X amount for Murray residents or give a discount, or how would that look like? Or
I'd prefer to have an internal discussion about that first before we introduce it tonight.
Okay. No, that's
We
fine.
can come back another time.
But we
for
can come
that.
back another time and look at that. Okay. Because I figured it would be a longer conversation. All right. Well, thank you, Jill, on that. All right. Any other questions before I open it up to the public?
It's not a public hearing.
Oh, no, sorry. Why not, right? Okay. Any other questions for Kim before I take a motion? There we go. No? Okay, I will go ahead and consider a motion.
I'll move we approve an ordinance amending 12.24.180 of the Murray City Municipal Code related to fees for use of the Murray Park outdoor swimming pool.
I'll second.
Okay. Or you want to go ahead and call the roll?
Aye.
No.
Aye.
No.
All right. That comes down to me. I will say I would like to have a discussion on that price or even some sort of incentives and in the future, probably immediately, and revisit that. And so with my vote, I am going to vote aye. With that, it passes. Thank you.
Was that specifically on the 450? Is that what you're talking
Yes. Okay. Yes, specifically on the 450. I think, I personally, and this is just, let me add this. I also understand Murray City gets used a lot in our park, and our facilities get used a lot from outside residents. And we're looking at different things coming down the pipeline, and we're going to need more space, recreational space, is from what I understand, even with the school board. And I want to be mindful on the cost for our citizens, as well as be mindful for the outside public that gets to use our facilities. And other cities do this all the time. They give priority to residents first. And I think we should really look into that in the future and immediately. Because I know personally there's a lot of things that are going to come up. And I think that's an opportunity. It's a missed opportunity, per se.
So just for clarification, you would like us to look specifically at the after hours rental, not the daily admissions.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. And yes. And then anything moving forward, whether it's any of our facilities, that we need to look at that for residents as well. So, yeah. Any other comments? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Oh, yeah, we'll revisit that portion. But it has passed, yes. Okay, we will move to item number 4. Right? Yes. No, 3. Oh, Sorry. I checked it off ahead. I got too excited. Consider an ordinance enacting section 12.24.135 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to trespassing on golf course property. Oh, this one will be fun. Go ahead.
Okay. So again, council, we're here to ask you to consider an ordinance pertaining to trespassing on the golf course. We talked about this 2 weeks ago, and the reason that this has come about is, as you know, we have residents by the Murray Parkway Golf Course now. This will allow us to not allow them to put in a gate on their property and be able to access the golf course from their property. It does allow the parks parks director and the golf superintendent to allow for people to come onto the golf course. And the only thing that I see us doing as far as allowing people to come on the golf course is contractors and different people that need to come onto the course and do some work. And then there is one situation. We have a softball field next to the golf course on the northeast corner. They have a gate that allows them to come in and retrieve their foul balls. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Does it work both ways? If your ball goes over onto their field, can you go and grab your?
If we wanted to, we probably could, but we don't allow the golfers to go onto their property. It has a lock. On the gate.
Oh,
so.
okay. Okay. Any questions?
When we say unlawful, what is the crime, I guess? Like, you trespass, so what happens? The police are called, I assume. And what is the citation?
It's a citation. I believe it's a Class B.
Misdemeanor.
Okay. Well, I will take a motion, Gary and the council.
Okay, I will move to adopt the resolution authorizing the execution of a renewal of the agreement. Oh, wait, no.
Number 3.
I
Number 3.
skipped 3 too. Okay, let me
3.
start again. I will move to adopt the ordinance enacting section 12.24.135 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to trespassing on golf course property.
I second.
All right, I have a first and a second. You want to go ahead and call the roll?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, thank you. Thank you, Kim, for bringing that forward. I was thinking there was a bunch of kids that were going on to play golf after hours because that would be fun. But which we should do that one time. Golf at night. Just thinking out loud. Anyways, okay. Number 4, finally, consider a resolution authorizing the execution of renewal of the agreement for auditing services with HBME LLC. Brenda Moore presenting.
Okay, so you have before you a resolution. Basically, our contract with HBME, which we signed in April of 2019 after the council picked them, has come to the end of its 3 years. It has a term in there that it's allowed to just extend for 2 more. The auditor has given us the prices for the next 2 years, including, so it jumped about $2,100 the first year. Inflation's getting everybody, and then $900 the second year. And then he also quoted prices for the single audit, which we get to have because of the ARP money that we are currently spending. As soon as I get that all spent, that will go away. We won't need to have a single audit again. And then he does help me prepare the financial statements. I'm pretty new at this, and there are some complicated things that go on in our financial statements, switching from our fund accounting into something that looks just like a business. So he helps me do that. So what this does is it allows the mayor to sign a contract with him. And at the end of this 2 years, as soon as I get the 2023 audit done, we will go out to RFP again and either rehire him or hire one of the other 5 firms that do this. There's not that many out there that do this in the area.
I said just real quickly, this normally wouldn't come back to you where we have an agreement that is renewable. In this case, we didn't provide for the increased costs, and cost is a substantial part of an agreement. So that's why we're coming back to you tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he'd
Any-
left the price the same, I think we probably would have been just fine. But his costs are going up, and he can't find auditors any more than we can find lifeguards.
And when you say he, this is the partner?
HBME, the partner, yes.
Okay.
When I say he, it's the partner that works with me.
Who you've had a good working relationship with, happy with the services being provided.
Yes, and he's got the format for our financials in his computer, and so he gives us a pretty decent discount now on our financial prep because he's got it all basically automated, not completely, but automated.
Yeah,
Can
I
you-
think he's also a very good communicator. I mean, he's willing to talk with us if we have any questions, and so I've been really impressed with him. I think we made a good choice 3 years ago.
Brenda, typically how long do auditors stay again? Is it
Well, we had this firm for at least, I think it might have been up to 15 years before. Then we had Kennington and Christensen for 3, and then council decided to put it back out, and so he's been back for 2.
So we had them for
For three.
15. They cooled off for 3, more or less. I mean, in the
Yep.
public accounting world, 7 years is the requirement for public companies. 10 years is oftentimes what the big firms hold for private companies. So this is reasonable for what they're doing. But having that 3-year cool off period is a good thing.
all right? Well, thank you so much. Any other comments, concerns? No?
No,
All
the
right.
increase seems low. So I think it's
Yeah,
good.
I mean,
Yep.
it seems substantial. Is there a certain threshold if it were to have to come back to the council at all? Or it's just because it increased?
It's just the cost itself. That's one of the major provisions of an agreement.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's changing is the reason we're coming back.
Okay.
Brenda, one more question. Do we ever have overruns, like where we miss budget and we have to pay them more? Outsiders, this has been all covered.
No, he does not charge us any more than what's listed on here.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Okay, I will ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve authorizing the execution of a renewal of the agreement for auditing services with HBME LLC.
I'll second.
All right, I got a first and a second. If you want to call the roll.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and move to item number 5 and consider a resolution establishing the spending plan framework for the city's allocation of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds, and electing the standard allowance under the ARPA for the reduction in revenue due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Brenda presenting again.
Okay, so I realized just a few minutes ago that 2 of the council members didn't see my fancy presentation last time. So I thought I would go just run through it very
Perfect.
quickly.
Thank you. I just said to Diana, I said, did we present this last? So thank you. Appreciate it.
So why are we here? We're here because of the American Rescue Plan Act, which created the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, also known as, we call it ARPA, because that's the easiest version.
You didn't like Sifler
No, I didn't like
or
Sifler.
Sifler or something?
Murray will receive a total of $5.7 million. And as I am preparing the 2023 budget, which you actually have, I've made one assumption in there. I would like to include how the funds are going to be spent so that we don't have to come back in the middle of the year and figure this out again. And we need to get started on spending this. There are time limits. The mayor and I agreed on the allocation, and then I'm presenting it to you for approval. We have 4 eligible use categories, just as a reminder, to provide government services up to the amount of lost revenue due to the pandemic. They actually created what is called the standard allowance. It works the same way as your taxes, sort of, where you can just say, we lost up to $10 million in revenue. You don't have to prove it. They don't audit it. That's just the minimum. The goal of that was there are a lot of very small cities who got money, and they don't have the ability to do the complicated math or whatever is needed to prove that they lost money. And some of them probably didn't. Technically, I don't think we did either. So the Treasury just said, up to $10 million, you can just say it's lost revenue, use it for government services, and we're good. You can use it to respond public health and economic responses, try and mitigate some of the harm that came from the pandemic. Premium pay for essential workers. We could go back and try and figure out who give bonuses to our employees if we wanted to. We couldn't figure out how to do, well, who was there, who wasn't there, what. Everybody stayed employed, all the full-time employees anyway, within, the pandemic. And then water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So they wanted to provide some funding for water, sewer, stormwater projects, along with high-speed broadband infrastructure. Murray is already really close to being built out with high-speed internet through the Utopia network. By June, it will be completely done. But we do run a water company, a sewer company, and a stormwater fund. So my guiding principles on these were, they are one-time money and should be used for one-time things. It's not an ongoing program thing. We're not going to get any money next year. Well, we'll get half of the money, but the year after that, 2024, no more money. The funds should be used on long-lasting projects where possible. The federal government's probably going to pay the debt on these for decades. Your grandchildren's grandchildren will probably still be paying those debts off. So maybe something that's in the ground for 25, 50 years might help, which is what stormwater and water projects do. The use of funds should be simple, easy to understand and to track. That's mostly for me and my reporting to the federal government. The use of funds should benefit as many citizens as possible. So this is what we proposed. $1 million to the wastewater fund for systems improvements. This is to kind of help with the Central Valley rebuild and then being able to do their own projects also. You've kind of already done a budget opening for that last time, so that one's kind of off the table. If you want to give them more money, that can be up for discussion, but you can't give them any less. $1 million to the stormwater fund for system improvements. Every property owner in Murray City pays stormwater fees. So this is one way to, the stormwater, I'm not going to go in and lower the stormwater fees because of this. My hope is this $1 million will offset some of the increased costs of construction that are going on right now, allow them to bump a project or two forward a little bit, and then possibly postpone the next round of fee increases. Not sure if that will happen, but that is why I want to give them $1 million. And then the rest, 3.789 to of the funds to be classified as lost revenue in the general fund. And then it will just be moved to the CIP fund to be used for either facilities, equipment, or maintenance on the city facilities, which benefits all residents. So that is the suggestion. And then I just put a little thing, it's kind of small, but Stormwater's 5-year CIP requests. They have $925,000, which would basically spend that whole ARPA funds this year that they are going to do. And then there's some bigger projects moved out 4 or 5 years that will help with potential flooding in areas. So hopefully that $1 million will kind of scoot some of those projects forward a little bit. And then questions and
Anybody have any questions?
I have some thoughts that I wanted to go over with this. I understand the $2 million allocations. I guess the 3,789. I just hate the idea of the money not going to work right away or as quickly as possible. And so my thought around that really is, you mentioned it was allowed to be bonuses for staff was one of the permitted uses. I just wonder if we need to go back and look at that harder to make sure that's something we can't do, because our staff work really, really hard. And so I don't understand why we wouldn't go back and take a look at that. The other piece was around broadband. I know that we have broadband throughout the city, or it's about to be for Utopia, but would it be beneficial for us to have public hotspots or something in certain areas?
that is an ongoing cost. You may not think it is,
Right.
but we're about to, I think the IT guy will tell me, the equipment, it's an ongoing cost. And I'm not sure, I'd have to do some research to see if just providing a wireless network would qualify. It might, probably does.
Other cities have used it.
Yeah, that's just what I remember from the
ARPA,
conference
yeah.
is that they had used it to provide those public
Well, one of the
hotspots.
ways I remember that they did use it in terms of broadband was making sure that Wi-Fi was used in all parks.
We
We
have it in this one.
Yeah, but they did it specifically in their cities for all the parks, and that's where they used their one-time funding, was making sure fiber was implemented in all the parks to be able to have free access to the public. So that's one way that other cities have used it, and one-time funding. Any other questions from anybody else?
No, we discussed this at the committee of the whole, and my concern is, I have things that I would also like to have done. There are environmental things I would like to, have all of our cars be alternative fuels, and so but we can put that in the CIP, and we can use it from there, and make sure it's balanced, and that's my
Well, even with that, and I will say this, there is TIF funding there was a part of the conference, there was funding coming down from transportation for that, for a lot of environmental stuff too. And TIF, sorry. And I'm interjecting because that was a part of my presentation that I didn't get to do, so I apologize for that, but I will share that information as well. But yes, Diane, I agree with you too.
So I think we all have our pet projects, things that we would like to see done. And I think the best way to distribute it would be through the CIP. So I'm comfortable with that. Gary?
I just think if we put it in the CIP, my fear is that it sits there for a while, and I would rather it sit as funds we haven't yet allocated, so we're more incentivized to come together and get a
To
plan
use it.
together and to use it, rather than put it in a fund that it then sits there. That's what I'm more thinking. If it's not allocated, then we have to come together and get it done.
But let me tell you, there's deadlines and get the use of this
I
money.
understand.
But the beauty of it, this all goes, like Diane said, this all goes through you. You can say, I want to use it for what you just said. It's
Right.
all available to you.
Right. I just fear that if we don't keep it sitting out there as a bold item for us to have in our faces and know that the deadline's coming, we may not act as fast. Big frustration with government is it moves slowly. And so, this may help it.
So I have two questions kind of to piggyback off of that. What is the CIP fund right now? What's our balance in the CIP fund?
Probably after you, if you approve this next budget, it'll be about $8 million, and that includes this money right here.
So that would include that. And project wise, what are we looking at? That's just for the one part.
The project wise, we're spending probably $11 or $12 million I don't remember off the top of my head. What I do know is that CIP will be out of money in about 3 years.
And what is the deadline for
2020
ARPA funding
I
to be
think
spent?
we need to have it decided what's happening to it in 2024, and like under contract, and then spent by 2025 or 6.
So could we leave it in like a part of the line item as ARPA funding still versus putting it into
No,
the
it's
CIP
gonna go.
fund?
It's gonna end up in reserve somewhere, which will end up in CIP.
And then
if
this,
you don't,
okay.
I mean, that's just the way it happens.
And then when you say that we have the first half, when does the second half come?
July.
So does the decision need to happen now?
It doesn't, but does make it more smooth if we can get this. Everything you guys have suggested can be done out of the CIP fund. The next time we do CIP will be in the next budget cycle, and your priorities can be in there, or we could adjust this one. Once we know that it's going to be there for sure, sitting in CIP, there's nothing that says we can't. I mean, we'd have to figure out, once it's in CIP, it doesn't matter. I guess we could use it for Wi-Fi. It's a government service. Doesn't matter if it qualifies for ARPA, it's a government service. You might want to talk to IT about that. It's a lot more expensive than you think, but to put Wi-Fi in the parks and to make it work, and then in 5 years you're going to be replacing all that equipment again.
No,
I just want to jump in and say I feel very comfortable with the CIP for a couple of the reasons you listed. One is the one-time project, which I think is a lot of the ideas we have, a lot of the ideas I heard at conference, which were really interesting and exciting, but a lot of them do have lingering, ongoing costs, even if they don't like necessarily first appear for it. And there's lots of initiatives that I think we're all interested in, but I think of what do I get the most phone calls on? It's all Danny's stuff. It's all, sidewalks. It's, it's like, it is that, like, that's the core of like the city council, I think, sort of response is fix my sidewalks. And if this can go into feed any of those one-time projects to speed up some of it. And I saw on Facebook the other day, the Public Works, all departments have amazing Facebook. But Public Works, I was looking at your Facebook the other day, and somebody asked, like, when is this going to get done? And they replied something like 5 or 6 years, and the person was like so grateful. And like, I think for a lot of people, 5 or 6 years would feel forever, right? You're going to take 5 to 6 years to get to my street. Why don't you care about me, right? But if we can feed that to get some of these done faster, that just feels so right to me. And if there are other things we should be doing, I don't think not moving it's going to impact our timeline. I would rather be safe than sorry in moving it now. I've seen how long it takes us to approve guidelines. I feel like speed is not our skill, and that's a good thing in government. But because of that, I would feel more comfortable moving it now and then continuing to talk about what other things are we excited about and what can we make work. That's where I'm at.
Anyone else?
Go
ahead, Diane.
I know you're concerned, Gary. I'm just wondering if there's something that, I don't know, maybe.
I mean, maybe it's a commitment that we have a meeting to discuss how we're going to spend. Like, we've pulled together 2 meetings now since I've been on since February. And I think we need to get another meeting on the calendar where we're going to discuss this piece. So if we have a commitment to do that, I'm happy to move it in. But that is just my concern. I don't want the bulk of the money to just go into another fund.
Anybody else before Pam?
We just need to remember this is for the citizens.
Exactly right.
And
so, yeah.
And that means sidewalks, because in my district, we have many sidewalks that I would like to be put into.
Always our lament.
And so,
yeah.
It's for the citizen. It's their taxes
I agree.
and their money.
I agree.
And so.
Well, I have a few things. I've been wanting to have this ARPA conversation since I've been on as chair, and been kind of brushed off in the sense that, well, we'll see where it goes. We have to put it in the budget. We have to get it in so we're not audited. And now after the conference and everything else, I think it's such a missed opportunity, and not to say sidewalks shouldn't be fixed. We already have a plan. We already have budgets for that. And do we need to look at more money for that? Great. Yes, let's do it. Let's look at the committee and do all of that. But I think it's also an opportunity for us to maybe bump up $1 million for stormwater, not necessarily stormwater, but sewer. We have a huge increase to our citizens and their utilities every month. And that's such a great opportunity to like increase that amount that we didn't have before. And so I think that's one for me. And utilities are going to increase in general. We're looking at it for power. And, you know, our resident, that's kind of the concern that I've gotten from residents, and in the sense that those are the calls and emails that I've gotten, and how do we use ARPA funding? And then coming back from the conference, I would like to sit and discuss how we use it, because it is our decision that we get to make, and it does have to pass through this body, and we should look at it. I definitely think there's a great opportunity to still put a couple million in the CIP fund. But I think there's also a great opportunity to take a couple $100,000 and use it for nonprofits too that have been struggling within our city that need that support. And that's not necessarily going to come out of the CIP fund. So I think it's just a missed opportunity, and that's kind of how I've been looking at it. And whether I was a part of the discussion or not originally, I've been trying to have this discussion on the onset. So
Well, there's been meetings that have been planned and they've been canceled or they've been rescheduled or whatever. But I know that there has been meetings that have been planned. And my question to you, Brenda, or to GL, can we put some of that money into a nonprofit? Is that one of the things that we could do with that ARPA money?
I think we could do it if they could prove that they had
some kind of hardship.
Sub grants are tough to monitor and stuff, to prove that they had some kind of hardship.
We did it through for the businesses. We gave some money.
That was a different.
I know that was different funding and different parameters.
So let me just say this ARPA, what we're talking about tonight is so expansive with the rules. And where Brenda said, hey, they're not going to audit us if we choose to say this much for services. That's true, but they will look at how we spend it. And so instead of deciding tonight, I like the idea of coming back to a meeting specifically for this and discussing it. And then if you're going to make a decision later. But yeah, there are a lot of moving parts to this. This is not something you just, and I know Brenda's given this a lot of thought for a long time.
Yep.
So I think in another setting, it would be probably more fruitful to have this discussion.
So once it's in CIP, though, it could be moved again if we ultimately decided we wanted to give Murray staff a one-time bonus.
Oh yeah, you can go back.
Understood.
But also remember, the idea behind this is to spend it. That we're not allowed to just let it sit there idle. So
So, yeah. So yeah, if it does go to CIP. Now, if you wanted to give more to stormwater, they would love it. If you wanted to give a little more to wastewater, they would love it. They have plenty of projects to do.
But it needs to serve the whole city.
Which is stormwater. Stormwater serves the whole
Wastewater
city. Wastewater, that's
is
why I
ninth.
didn't suggest any water projects, is because water only serves a portion of the city.
Yeah, 9th and above.
9th and above does not get affected by wastewater, at least not directly. Some of those fees do get transferred to the general fund, but in general, but stormwater, those projects affect everybody, and a lot of, I think the county, when they above 9th, there's not a lot of storm drains up there, from what I understand, and so we're catching up on some of those, some of that stuff up there. But there are plenty of stormwater projects. So if you wanted to shoot them a little more, that's not a problem. Once it goes to CIP, it can sit in a block of money. You guys can discuss it, have a meeting and discuss it, and we can do it as part of the next budget. when we're discussing CIP in the budget meetings, we can have another one and you guys can allocate that. And then you've also, what you haven't seen yet is we've had to budget $5.2 million to do the Murray Theater. That's a chunk of change until we can get some donations in here. So there are a lot of projects that you guys have already said that you want to do.
Yeah.
That this money would help. So.
All right. Well, anybody else? No? Okay. Well, I would consider a motion.
I would like to make a motion for a resolution establishing the spending plan framework for the city's allegation of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds, electing the standard allowance under ARPA for the reduction in revenue due to the COVID-19 public health emergency.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any other discussions on those motions? Or Diane?
Thank you. Okay, so it goes to the CIP. The CIP committee meets how often?
Well,
We haven't met.
they haven't met yet because of an illness, and so now you can do it. The budget notes that I put in there basically said you can do the CIP committee as a whole. So all 5 of you, when we're in those meetings, can decide what the CIP projects you want to approve or disapprove, or they usually meet at budget time. So we could meet in between now and when we do the budget, the tentative budget on the 18th of May, and make a decision about what, and then you guys can, if you're going to meet as a whole, you could have a meeting about what to do with this 3-point whatever.
So so for CIP, it's can you explain what we can use those funds for CIP?
Anything but stuff that's in the, it's mostly streets, parks.
It's one-time projects, right?
One-time projects, maintenance.
Okay. Any other discussions?
No.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
No. All right, that has passed, and we look forward to coming together later and further discussion and working with the CIP committee on that. All right, I will go ahead and move it over to Mayor Brett Hells for your report.
You've heard enough from me, so thank you. We appreciate all your work and look forward to working with you on the budget now. So thank you.
Thank you, and we are adjourned. So thank you so much. Have a great day, evening.